crowd had gathered around two people. Everyone was there to see the school belle Chu Qingli finally break up with her boyfriend. The whispers started immediately. People said they were on totally different levels now that she was going to a top university. She finally said his name, Fang Yi. He just looked back at her waiting. Then she started her speech, telling him she'd thought it over. She said their relationship just wasn't realistic. She went on, explaining that love in school isn't meant to last, and that they just weren't right for each other. Finally, she said the words, "Let's break up." She looked completely sure of herself, expecting him to fall apart. But Fang Yi didn't say a word. The crowd was confused. They expected him to beg. Chu Qingli just stood there, soaking in the attention. Then he just shrugged and said something. His casual response left her completely speechless. He just turned and started to walk away. Chu Qingli called out, shocked that he was leaving so quickly without making a scene. He paused and looked back at her. She immediately got defensive, telling him not to get any ideas. She made it clear that no matter what tricks he tried, they were never getting back together. But Su Chen wasn't hurt at all. He just looked at her with a calm, almost amused expression. He told her not to flatter herself. Then he added that he was busy and turned his back on her for good. She was left completely speechless. The crowd was shocked, but Su Chen wasn't even thinking about them. He knew that everything they cared about, money, school, status, was about to turn to dust. The thing is, he had come back from a future disaster. He was a man reborn. To him, Chu Qingli was just a stranger from a life he'd already left behind. Right now, he had much more important things to deal with. School drama meant nothing, because a real crisis was coming for the entire planet. It all started the night before. Something inside him shattered. He was flooded with memories of the world he left behind. A world of monsters, chaos, and destruction. A voice in his head revealed the exact countdown. In just under a year, spiritual energy would return to the world, and everything would change forever. The voice explained that society would be completely rebuilt. The age of spiritual practitioners was about to begin, and only power would matter. Floating in a strange, empty space, he faced the bright light and demanded to know who was talking to him. A screen appeared in front of him. It called itself a system from the ends of the universe, and it claimed it could automatically create new techniques for him. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he touched the strange screen. The moment he made contact, a terrifying image of a monster flashed through his mind. The vision of the monster was terrifying, its massive head lunging forward as if to swallow him whole. But he didn't flinch, his eyes were wide open, taking it all in. The system showed him exactly what was supposed to happen. This was his original ending, the same fate that awaited billions of others on the planet. And then it all came flooding back. He remembered his past life. He was just an average person, swept away by the disaster and struggling just to survive. He watched his nation fall and saw people suffer everywhere. In the end, he couldn't escape the mutated beasts that overran the world. He died in despair, filled with rage and a burning desire for revenge. He realized that must have been why the system chose him. He was brought back a year before everything changed. Right now, almost nobody had a clue what was coming. This time, he would use every strange event and every piece of his knowledge to his advantage. As he floated in that strange space, a message appeared. The system was starting a new assessment. His eyes glowed with immense power. The system announced that it had successfully bound to him, unlocking a completely new path forward. The system explained its main rule. Anything in the world could be used as material to make him stronger. His mission was simple: become a powerful cultivator and save humanity from a crisis that was already beginning. He knew the government wasn't confirming or denying anything yet, just telling people to be prepared. But news of strange mutated creatures was already starting to spread online. Su Chen understood their quiet approach. It was a slow way to get people ready without causing mass panic, which he knew from experience was far worse. Then it hit him. If the system could use anything for power, that meant he needed to go wherever these strange events were happening. That's where he would get stronger. Right on cue, he saw a news story trending. Qingcheng University was experiencing a record-breaking heatwave. Most people commenting just thought it was a publicity stunt. But Su Chen knew something was off. The university was only a 15-minute drive away, yet the weather there was completely different. This had to be one of the anomalies. A confident smile spread across his face. He knew exactly where he needed to go. This was his first real chance. Without wasting a moment, he headed out the door. He arrived at the north gate of Qingcheng University. The heat was even worse than he expected, baking the entire campus under a strange red sun. While everyone else was running for cover, Su Chen noticed something they didn't. Tiny, glowing specks of light were floating all around him. He knelt down and carefully reached out to touch one of the lights. The second he made contact, a huge wave of energy exploded from the ground. The system immediately reacted, telling him it had detected an intense yang attribute and was unlocking a new data template. The raw power surged into his body. It was so intense he could barely stand the pain. A massive pillar of golden light shot up into the sky, engulfing the entire area. The people on campus were completely stunned. A blinding golden light erupted from where Su Chen was standing, and they had no idea what they were looking at. Some thought it was an attack, others just stared in disbelief. Inside the light, Su Chen was in agony. The power was so intense it felt like his entire body was being torn apart from the inside out. He was sure he wasn't going to make it. But just as he reached his breaking point, the process finished. A message appeared from the system. He had successfully acquired a new yang attribute technique, the cold and sun breathing technique. It was registration day at Qingcheng University. Everything seemed completely normal. Inside, the registration area was buzzing with activity. A woman with bright red hair was getting a lot of attention from the other students, but she didn't seem interested. She ignored them, meeting up with her friends. A couple nearby was celebrating getting into the same school, but she just rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed. Suddenly, a huge blast of light and heat erupted from the north gate of the campus. An emergency alert blared over the speakers, warning everyone to stay away from the area. But while the others were scared, she looked intrigued. She thought about all the strange things happening lately and decided she needed to see what was going on. Meanwhile, at the north gate, the source of the chaos was Su Chen. He was standing in the middle of a swirling vortex of pure energy. The raw power continued to pour into him, his body changing as he absorbed it all. As the energy settled, a message appeared. The system confirmed he'd unlocked the Golden Sun breathing technique and had gained 50 compilation points. He had no idea what compilation points were, but he figured he'd learn later. For now, he could feel the immense power he'd gained. As the intense energy finally faded, the sky returned to normal. The next morning, the campus was quiet, as if nothing had happened. But the students hadn't forgotten. They talked about how the sky went dark for a moment. Hearing that a crowd was gathering at the north gate, their curiosity got the best of them. They weren't the only ones there. The university president had arrived with his staff, trying to figure out why everyone was ignoring the warnings to stay away. They pushed through the crowd, heading straight for the spot where the light had erupted. The air was still thick with a strange white smoke. A man in a dark hood gave an order to seal off the area. A strange message appeared, confirming that the grade, a polluted zone at the north gate, had just been purified. The system gave Su Chen more information. These polluted zones were designated by the government. This meant he wasn't the only one who knew what was happening. Just then, a loud warning echoed through the area, telling all unauthorized people to leave immediately. They were talking about him. He watched as people in military uniforms pushed through the crowd. This was getting way too big. He had to get out of there before someone noticed him. Without wasting a second, he decided it was time to go. He pushed off the ground and shot into the sky, leaving the chaos behind. Just as Su Chen disappeared, someone else arrived. A mysterious figure in a dark hood and blue cloak walked through the smoke, heading right for the spot where the energy had erupted. They knelt down, their hand hovering just over the cracked pavement, feeling for any leftover energy. The figure picked up a small piece of the ground, examining it closely. They looked up, a thought crossing their mind. This wasn't a natural event. It was man-made. They wondered if it was another person who had awakened their aura early. Meanwhile, officials were trying to get the students to evacuate. Amid the chaos, a red-haired woman overheard something that shocked her. This terrifying event was man-made, and it had something to do with aura. She looked up at the sky, watching the figure disappear. She wondered if it was a person named Fang Yi. Her friend quickly shut her down, saying there was no way he could be at this university. Back at his apartment, a man named Fang Yi was in serious trouble. A strange heat was burning up his body from the inside. No matter what he tried, cold showers, air conditioning, nothing helped. Meanwhile, Su Chen was back in his room, worried that the huge scene he caused might have drawn the wrong kind of attention. He pulled out his phone to check the news and saw the #1 trending topic. The Aura Cultivation Association had just updated its list of cultivation realms. He remembered seeing them before. He thought about the strange people who showed up at the university right after the explosion. He tapped the link to see what it was all about. It was a detailed list of different power levels for cultivators, starting from the very beginning all the way to godlike power. But the comments below were full of people laughing it off, saying it was just fake nonsense made up for clicks. But Su Chen knew this was real. In his past life, he was just trying to survive, so he never would have seen information like this. He figured this had to be the government's way of secretly reaching out to people who had awakened their powers. With that thought, he decided to try out his Golden Sun breathing technique again. He sat on his bed, closed his eyes, and began to focus. In an instant, a powerful golden energy burst out, surrounding him completely. The golden energy swirled around him, getting stronger and more intense by the second. He focused all his will, trying to shape the raw power into a weapon. Suddenly, the energy exploded outwards. He could feel his entire body changing from the inside. The system confirmed it. He had ascended to the Daoshuai realm. Not only that, but he'd also gained 50 compilation points, which let him embed his power into any object. He almost forgot about the points. The system explained that the compiled data was his Golden Sun breathing technique. He could literally put that power into anything. His eyes landed on a cup on his nightstand. He held his hand over the cup, and the system asked if he wanted to embed the Yang attribute. He grinned. This was enchanting. He could give supernatural power to any object he wanted. He imagined what he could do with a real weapon. The system also hinted that he wouldn't be limited to just one attribute either. He knew right then that having a custom-made, super-powered weapon was going to be critical for what was coming. He decided to test his new power on the cup first. He knew he had to be fully prepared to fight the mutated monsters that were coming. A moment later, a bright beam of light shot out of his window and into the night sky. But that burst of energy didn't go unnoticed. In the nearby woods, something stirred. It was a mutated creature, its red eyes glowing with hunger. It had found its next target. Back in his room, Su Chen was trying to get some rest when he heard a strange scratching sound. It was faint at first, but it was definitely there. His eyes snapped open. He immediately assumed a rat had somehow gotten into the building. He sat up trying to figure out where it was coming from. He realized that after his power-up, his hearing was so sharp he could probably hear things from his neighbor's apartments. He figured it was just someone's pet making noise. But then he paused, something felt very wrong. The sound wasn't coming from another apartment. It was right there in his own hallway. He knew exactly what it was. A mutated beast just like the ones from his past life. Seeing one again sent a shiver down his spine. Miles away, someone else was hunting that same creature. A woman on a skyscraper rooftop reported that they still hadn't caught the rabbit that ate the night spirit fruit. She said its speed was just too insane. But she seemed completely unfazed by the challenge. The woman on the skyscraper got an update. She knew exactly where the creature was. Without a second of hesitation, she jumped off the side of the skyscraper, diving straight down. As she fell, her eyes glowed. She could feel the beast's energy signature, confirming she was on the right track. She landed on a rooftop with enough force to crack the concrete, immediately ready to leap again. An alert came through her earpiece. The creature had just entered a crowded residential area 20 kilometers away. This was bad. She warned her team to be careful. The beast had eaten a powerful spirit fruit and was still evolving. It was only going to get stronger. The chase was so fast that it was just a blur of light to anyone on the ground. A man working late in his office saw the streak flash by his window and froze. He stared out the window, wondering if he was just seeing things from working too late. His boss yelled at him to get back to work, and the moment was gone. She landed on the 65th floor of another building, still hunting for the creature. But the beast was already somewhere else. It lunged straight at Su Chen. He realized his body had changed completely after the breakthrough. Everything felt like it was moving in slow motion, and he dodged the attack easily. He was surprised that a mutated beast like this had shown up so early. Golden energy started gathering in his hand. He remembered creatures like this from his past life. This one wasn't even fully evolved yet, but the darkness was making it stronger and more aggressive. He knew if he didn't stop it right now, everyone in the building would become its next meal. He moved in, ready to end this. The beast snapped at him, its teeth chomping on nothing but air. He knew its weakness was the tail. With a burst of speed, he spun around and struck it with everything he had. The blow sent the creature flying backwards, shattering the glass window. Su Chen leaped right after it, not giving it a second to recover. He charged up another attack, his fist glowing with golden energy. A pillar of pure energy shot up from the ground, hitting the beast dead on. The blast was so intense it completely swallowed the creature. But the beast wasn't done. It lunged forward to bite him. So Su Chen shoved a ball of pure energy right into its throat. That's when Su Chen realized what it was doing. The creature was trying to absorb his power. He knew the pure energy of the sun was too much for it to handle. It was destroying itself from the inside. The explosion echoed through the neighborhood like thunder, waking people up. But when they looked outside, they couldn't see anything. Su Chen landed softly on the ground, the last of his energy fading around him. He thought about how the creature had tried to drain him, acting like a starving ghost. The fight was finally over. As the last of the creature's body turned to dust, a small, round object dropped to the ground. Su Chen just watched, his golden energy slowly fading. He realized the creature was a night attribute beast, but it was so hungry it attacked him anyway, even though his yang power was its perfect counter. He knew the mutations were starting. If he hadn't awakened his powers, he would have been helpless. Everyone in the neighborhood would have been torn apart. To face what was coming, he knew he needed to get even stronger. But Su Chen's burst of power didn't go unnoticed. Far away, someone else was moving through the forest at incredible speed, heading right for the disturbance. She landed silently in the clearing where the fight had happened. Her eyes widened as she took in the destruction, wondering if the target was gone. She knelt down, confirming the target was gone, its body completely destroyed. Her first move was to try and recover any remaining night attribute energy from this, but as her hand got close, she felt an intense heat radiating from the ground. It was an incredibly pure yang energy, the same kind she'd sensed before. She knew this wasn't a coincidence. She immediately activated her earpiece to make a report. She reported back to headquarters. The mutated rabbit was gone, but she explained that she wasn't the one who took it down. A new forerunner with a powerful attribute had appeared. On the other end of the line, her contact at HQ put the pieces together. He realized this meant the same person was responsible for both the university incident and the mutated rabbit. He was stunned that someone at such a low realm could have an attribute that the man quickly checked their database but found no record of this person. He decided someone with this much talent was too important to ignore. The association had to get to them first. Back in the forest, the agent agreed with the plan. A strange, fiery energy began to swirl around her. She gathered the glowing power into her hands. The order came through from HQ. She was to drop all her current missions. Her new top priority was to track down this foreigner and convince them to join the Aura Cultivation Association. Turns out, the energy she was holding was just a lollipop. She calmly unwrapped it. With her new orders clear, she accepted the mission. With her new mission set, the agent paused for a moment. Her mind was already racing, trying to figure out just who this mysterious person was. She realized her president was right. Anyone with this kind of power was definitely a master. She became determined. She had to find them and get to know them. Meanwhile, Su Chen started his day. He believed waking up early was the best time to cultivate his power. He stood in the morning light and activated his golden sun breathing technique, pulling the sun's energy directly into his body. His eyes began to glow with a brilliant golden light. He formed an axe out of pure energy. It felt much lighter than before. He knew that just like chopping wood, cultivation was all about persistence. He gathered all his power into one final strike. He brought the glowing axe down with all his might. And just like that, a notification appeared. He had advanced to Ghost Axe Realm 2-star. His power surged and his eyes burned like fire. He could feel the power settling in. His entire body felt stronger, tougher than ever before. He realized his rapid progress was partly because he was still using the leftover energy from his last breakthrough. He knew he had to level up step by step from now on. The problem was his cultivation was way too flashy. He needed to find a quiet place to train. That's when he noticed a package had arrived. But his burst of power didn't go unnoticed. Miles away, an official at the association got an alert. It was another solar energy fluctuation. He knew right away who was responsible. Su Chen found a quiet spot out in nature. He pulled out the item from the package, a blade. A system window appeared asking if he wanted to implant his yang attribute into it. He immediately agreed. He remembered trying this before with a small figurine, but the item was too weak and couldn't handle the power. This time was different. He could feel the blade resonating with his energy like they shared the same origin. A moment later, the system confirmed it was a success. He held the weapon, feeling its power. It was time to see what it could really do. The result was more than he could have imagined. A single swing sent out a massive wave of pure energy, tearing through the forest and leaving a trail of fire in its wake. The power he unleashed was unbelievable. He almost started a wildfire. The smoke and noise would definitely draw people here. It was time to go. The agent from the association arrived just moments too late. She was furious with herself for stopping to get a drink, blaming her bad luck for missing the action. When she saw the destruction, she was stunned. A huge Buddha statue had been completely obliterated. She sighed, already dreading the report she'd have to file. She knew the cleanup department was going to give her a hard time for this mess. But then she felt the energy left in the air and froze. It was impossible. Just last night, this person was a ghost axe 1 star. Now their aura was at 2 star, and there was something else mixed in, the energy of a spirit weapon. Spirit weapons were legendary, normal weapons infused with an attribute, giving them extraordinary power. They were so rare that the entire association only had 2 of them. The technology wasn't even available to the public yet. She couldn't figure it out. How did this person get their hands on one? The agent tried to laugh it off, telling herself she must have made a mistake. With a sigh, she decided she'd better start cleaning up the mess. Miles away, Su Chen walked through the forest, thinking about his weapon. It now had the Yang attribute, but he wondered if he could use his system's coding ability to stack even more powers onto it. Suddenly, he got a message. Someone claiming to be another pioneer had found him by checking his browsing history. They invited him to join their group of 3, explaining they were looking for allies. The person also shared a rumor. Even the top members of the national team were only at the Ghost Axe. The other pioneer mentioned a newly formed pollution zone and asked if he wanted to team up to explore it. Su Chen was immediately interested. He asked for the location, and the person sent him a data file right away. Su Chen opened the file. It was a pollution zone called Dark River Molten Dragon. The data explained it was a river in a deep crack in the earth that had turned into pure lava. He realized its fiery nature was the same attribute as his Yang power. This could be a huge opportunity. He messaged back agreeing to the team up. They would meet in the Binmu district. The meeting point, 2 pioneers named Old Lai and Zhang Zioya were waiting with another man. They thanked Zioya for the detailed map she provided. With their new ally about to arrive, they all agreed to watch out for each other once they were inside. Turns out, Zhang Zioya was actually an agent for the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association, a secret government agency. She was hoping to scout some impressive pioneers, but so far she was disappointed. Becoming a member had been extremely difficult, and it took a lot of favors from her family to even get her foot in the door. She sighed, worried she'd be stuck working overtime if this trip was a bust. But then she looked up and her eyes widened. She recognized the person who just arrived. The newcomer walked up to the group holding a strange weapon. He calmly introduced himself as Fang. Zioya was stunned. She could sense his power level. He was a Ghost Axe Realm 2 star, but something was strange. Even though his aura was incredibly strong, it didn't feel threatening. It actually felt warm. With everyone finally together, the team was ready to move out. They stepped into the darkness of the cave. Inside, it was pitch black. Old Lai took the lead, and Zioya used a flashlight to light their path. As they walked deeper, Old Lai warned Fang to watch out for loose rocks. The team thought it was strange that the cave wasn't nearly as hot as they expected. They guessed they just hadn't reached the core of the pollution zone yet. Fang was grateful for his new team. They had accepted him right away and it felt genuine. They finally reached the end of the tunnel. A massive cavern filled with lava opened up before them, the heat hitting them in a wave. But before anyone could react, Fang leaped forward right toward the fire. His team screamed in panic, thinking he had a death wish. Huge blast of fire erupted from where he stood, throwing everyone back. At the same time, a message appeared in his mind. The system had found a world anomaly called Inner Flame and was starting to analyze it. The system finished its analysis. The anomaly was called Inner Flame, a highly explosive and destructive power source. Then a new skill appeared. It was the Scarlet Flame Sword Technique, a power that coated his blade in fire and lightning, growing stronger with his will to fight. Fang realized this new power was a perfect match for his sword. He decided to use his script points to permanently embed the Inner Flame into his weapon. His team watched in disbelief from below. He wasn't burning alive, he was perfectly fine, and his weapon seemed to be absorbing the lava's power. Fang turned back to them, his sword now blazing with fire. His teammates figured he'd just had a small accident while training. They also noticed the spiritual energy in the cave had calmed down, making it the perfect time to cultivate. The others were ecstatic. The energy in the air had completely changed, and they could finally absorb it smoothly. One of them felt he was on the verge of a major breakthrough. Zioya just smiled and told them to focus on their training. She explained she was only there to gather information anyway, so she would stand guard. But a moment later, her expression changed. She looked toward the entrance of the cave. They weren't alone anymore, other pioneers were coming. The leader of the new group told them to get lost, claiming the land for his team. Zioya knew they were in trouble. All 3 of the intruders were 1 star in the Ghost Axe realm, way too strong for her and the others to handle. Still, she tried to reason with them. She explained that her friend was already absorbing the spiritual energy and offered to let them join. The leader just laughed and told her to get lost before he got angry. Zioya knew this was how things were now, survival of the fittest. But as a member of the association, she felt like she had to do something about it. Just then, a calm voice cut through the tension. It was Fang Yi. He stepped forward, his sword blazing with fire. He looked the big guy up and down and mocked him for bullying a little girl. Without another word, he swung his blade. A huge wave of fire sent the intruders flying. The rest of the team could only stare, completely stunned by what just happened. He knew that in this world, too many people believed that only the strongest should survive. It was a belief that caused a lot of pain, and he understood that just talking to people like that was a complete waste of time. So he swung his sword again, unleashing another huge wave of fire. He simply told them to get lost. That second explosion was too much for them. The leader screamed for his men to run. His teammates were completely amazed, telling him that his attack was insane. Fang Yi just smiled, saying the other guys were out of line. He suggested they leave now that the spiritual energy in the area was gone. As they left, Zhang Zioya thought about what she'd just seen. If that sword strike had actually landed, those men would have been burned to ash. She knew he had to be a top-tier pioneer with incredible talent, and she had to report this to her organization. Sometime later, Zioya was on the phone with an official from the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association. She reported finding a new high-attribute pioneer. The woman on the other end was surprised and asked what she meant by another one. Zioya quickly avoided the question. After the call, the woman turned to her superior, a man she called teacher. She wondered if they were lucky to find two powerful people in a row. But he looked grim. He told her it wasn't luck, these individuals were about to become the new centers of power in the world. The man in charge felt the situation slipping through his fingers. He was so stressed, he thought about just quitting. Meanwhile, back in the city, the day was bright and sunny. As Fang Yi walked down the street, he started getting a lot of attention. A couple of girls nearby thought he was just a handsome cosplayer with a really realistic-looking prop sword. But even disguised in casual clothes, he couldn't hide his presence. The people around him could feel it, calling him the pinnacle of men. He ignored them and pulled out his phone. He'd found an article online and it was about him. It described golden lights and purple energy rising from a cave and even mentioned a man with a giant blade. His secret was out. He realized he'd been careless. The power he unleashed was so intense it was bound to cause a scene. He wondered if Old Lai or Zhang Zioya had been the ones to reveal who he was. He could feel the massive amount of yang energy he'd absorbed. All he needed was one more cycle, and he might break through to the next level. He needed a safe place to handle the energy surge, and he needed it now. Without wasting a second, he headed for the back mountain. A few minutes later, behind Fang Yi's house, someone was hard at work. A woman named Su Qingying wiped the sweat from her forehead. She had just finished restoring the garden and seemed pleased with her work. But then she felt something. A huge wave of power washed over the mountain. She couldn't believe it. The energy was so strong, it felt like someone was trying to break through to the 3-star ghost Asura. But this was way too intense for a normal breakthrough. The sheer power was monstrous. She had to see who was causing this. A thought crossed her mind, could it be him? Shaking her head, she decided it was impossible, but she ran toward the energy anyway. She had to find out for sure. The energy exploded outwards, twisting and coiling into the sky. He was gathering an insane amount of power. He sat completely focused, his eyes glowing with power. He began to shape the energy, molding it into the form of a giant glowing axe. Su Qingying watched in complete shock. She realized he was trying to swing the divine axe. She couldn't understand how anyone could control spiritual energy with such perfect precision. It was like he'd been secretly training for hundreds of years. She remembered her own attempt to break through to the ghost axe 2-star level. The pressure from the divine axe had bounced back, leaving her coughing up blood and stuck in bed for a week. Even with her strong body, she had failed. She couldn't imagine where this monster came from. The sheer amount of spiritual energy was one thing, but his control over it was something else entirely. Every single thread of power seemed like it had been refined thousands of times. This person wasn't just some monster, he was like a god who had come down from the heavens. On top of everything, he was moving so steadily. Most people would rush a breakthrough, but his mentality was strong, like a reclusive master from ancient times. That's when she saw it. The divine axe began to move, pointing towards the east. The energy completely consumed him. A message appeared confirming his success. He had reached the ghost axe realm 2-star. The wave of power from the breakthrough slammed into the area. Su Qingying hit the ground, panting just from being near it. The force of the energy blast was so strong, it sent Su Qingying flying backwards. She couldn't even get close. By the time she recovered, he was gone. It had only been 30 seconds. She realized he must have known she was tracking him this whole time. But she had a feeling he hadn't left. She took a chance and called out, asking if the senior was still around. And just like that, he appeared from the trees. Su Chen looked down at the girl and finally understood. So she was the one who'd been investigating him for the past few days. The girl quickly introduced herself. She was Su Qingying, a captain from the Spiritual Practitioners Association. She explained that she was only following him because she wanted to invite him to join their official group, and she seemed really worried that she'd made a bad impression. Su Chen just asked one simple question. The question completely threw her off. She started stammering, trying to figure out the right way to answer, knowing a guy like him wouldn't fall for some empty, polite speech. So she just told him the truth. The association's goal was to gather all the pioneers, guide them, and provide protection. She admitted that joining might feel like a restriction, but eventually they'd all have to face the new threats together. Su Chen looked completely unimpressed. He leaned back and asked what would happen if he said no. After all, he still couldn't trust her. The girl was sweating. She was clearly trying to find the right words to convince this guy. So she just blurted out her identity. Her name was Su Qingying, and she was a member of the Spiritual Energy Association. She even mentioned she used to be an athlete, hoping he'd recognize her, and quickly showed him her ID to prove she was telling the truth. He looked back at the girl and told her he'd think about her offer. And with that, he just leaped into the air and vanished into the trees, leaving her standing there. But he wasn't done. He appeared right behind her and laid out his first condition. She had to keep his location a secret. He could tell from her behavior that the association didn't dare to anger powerful pioneers, so he offered a deal. He would cooperate, but she had to file a report that was only half true, hiding his real strength. He told her that would work, and then he was gone again. With the deal set, Su Qingying took off through the woods. As she walked, she couldn't help but complain to herself. This guy was impossible to catch, and he was clearly avoiding her on purpose. On top of that, she was the one who had to run around erasing all the traces of his power. The poor girl was completely worn out. While on the call, Su Qingying got some bad news. The person on the other end told her the anomalous entities were back. Her mind flashed back instantly to those strange, brutal creatures she'd faced before. She remembered them all too well. Some were cold and evil, others were just bloodthirsty. They drew their power from pollution zones that appeared after spiritual energy returned, turning into twisted monsters that devoured humans or disguised themselves as natural disasters. By spreading chaos and destruction, they created even more of these pollution zones. The threat was simple. If they weren't eliminated, they would continue to devour the human world until nothing was left. As if on cue, a massive storm slammed into the city. A red alert flashed across a screen, warning everyone to stay inside. It specifically mentioned that the Yaowang mountain area had been closed because of the danger. The storm was so intense, it felt like more than just weather. It was like some supreme power was undergoing a trial. And out in the rain, Su Chen was on the move. He walked through the downpour as lightning crashed around him. The air was thick with an incredible amount of wild energy. The whole storm seemed to be focused on a single point. And that point was Yaowang Mountain. A massive bolt of lightning struck the peak, lighting up the entire sky. Su Chen reached the base of the mountain. He'd found it. Without wasting a single moment, he leaped forward, disappearing into the storm. He moved like a blur through the downpour, heading straight for the source of the disturbance. A notification screen suddenly appeared in front of him. The system confirmed his suspicions. A pollution zone had just opened on Yaowang Mountain. The system provided more details. This mountain was a massive tourist attraction spanning thousands of acres. But the most important piece of information was the most worrying. The pollution level was completely unknown. Su Chen's expression was dead serious. He could feel it now, a massive surge of raw, untamed energy crackling through the energy was erupting straight from the mountain's peak, a pillar of pure power shooting right into the stormy sky. Meanwhile, in a high-tech briefing room, officials were getting the first reports. The spiritual energy on Mount Yaowang was spiking dangerously. The recommendation was clear. The mountain had to be closed off immediately and declared a new contamination zone. The lead official looked grim. He explained that the situation was so dangerous, he'd pulled a woman named Qingying off another mission to handle it. He then asked her to report the latest developments. Qingying began her report to the room full of officials. She confirmed that it was impossible to ascend the mountain. The thunder energy was about to explode, and they'd already classified it as an A-level contamination zone. But it was getting worse. She warned that within an hour it could become a S-level threat. The real problem was that no one in their ranks was strong enough to get near it, not even her. The calculations were grim. For any high-level explorer who tried to enter the area, the mortality rate was 100%. It was a suicide mission. One of the officials made the call. They had to seal the foot of the mountain immediately and post patrols around the clock. No one was getting in. Another official agreed. The only option was to eliminate the threat at its root by sealing the mountain completely. They would wait for the energy to die down before reassessing. But while they were busy making plans to run away, Su Chen was already deep inside the storm. The raw, violent energy that terrified the officials was exactly what he came for. Luckily for him, he had the Jin-Yang breathing technique, perfect for a situation like this. He knew that just being in the storm wasn't enough. To get the purest thunder energy, he had to reach the very center of it all, the peak of Mount Yaowang. He thought about how the world had changed. Since spiritual energy returned, humanity had actually fallen to the bottom of the food chain. Nature was twisted, and now even a simple rat could become a deadly threat. And he knew even more terrifying things were coming, things that even powerful practitioners might not be able to handle. His breathing technique and sword style were strong, but they were nowhere near enough for what was ahead. He remembered how he'd enhanced his sword, giving it durability and destructive power. But relying on a weapon was a critical weakness. He had to become strong on his own to have any chance against the vicious creatures out there. This storm, this raw thunder energy, it was the perfect opportunity to temper his body and become even stronger. He had to use these world-changing events to his advantage. Because if he didn't, he'd have no choice but to wait for the next disaster to come and finish him off. He braced himself as a massive bolt of lightning slammed right into him. The raw power was unbelievable, and he screamed as it coursed through his body. The pain was intense, but he gritted his teeth, determined to endure it. This was the price of power. Su Chen coughed, his body getting hammered by the storm. He could feel it now. This wasn't just lightning. It was a raw, punishing force of nature. The pressure was immense. It felt like the storm itself was angry at him for being there, demanding he kneel before it. But Su Chen had no intention of bowing. He had to figure out how to master this power, not just survive it. He forced himself to think clearly, remembering the system's warning. He couldn't just block the energy, he had to touch it, connect with it. That was the key. With a surge of determination, he pushed his Jin-Yang breathing technique to its absolute limit. A massive pillar of pure lightning energy slammed down on him. He screamed as his golden aura met the lightning in a massive explosion of power. Blood trickled from his mouth, but his eyes burned with unwavering resolve. He wasn't backing down. He just had to endure until he reached the summit. That was the goal. He had to push through this to face death head-on if he wanted to come out of it alive and stronger. The torrent of thunder energy was so violent that even breathing was a struggle, his muscles locking up. The storm was doing everything it could to eliminate him, but he wasn't going to let it. His eyes glowed with power. He wasn't just surviving the storm anymore, he was becoming one with it, pulling the raw lightning directly into himself. The system lit up, detecting a powerful thunder attribute. Miles away, people watched the storm from their high-rise windows, completely terrified. One of them swore he could see the shape of a person in the sky. Back on the mountain, Su Chen absorbed the last of the energy. The system confirmed it. He had obtained refined divine thunder. He felt the new power coursing through him. It was a supreme force, not just for attacking but for refining the body itself, transforming it into lightning. He thought about the legends of ancient warriors who drew lightning into themselves to become indestructible. Now he understood. This power would be his spear, and it would also be his shield. But then he realized something deeper. This power wasn't just for destruction. It was about purification and rebirth. He could feel it strengthening his bones and muscles without any pain at all. With this new understanding, he had to decide how to use it. His first thought was to infuse the power into his sword, but he hesitated. The sword already had the sun attribute, and mixing them could damage the weapon. That's when he got a better idea. He would implant the power directly into his own body, into his right hand. A grin spread across his face. Without a second thought, he focused the crackling blue energy, driving it straight into his own hand. The next day on Yaowang Peak, a team was investigating the storm's aftermath. A woman reported to her superior, a man named Captain Han. She explained that something was wrong. The massive amount of energy that had filled the air had just disappeared in only 3 hours. The Major Han Lai knew exactly what that meant. Someone else had been there. A seeker. His subordinate couldn't believe it. She rushed over, asking if he thought it was possible the seeker actually survived. She knelt down, trying to sense any lingering traces of their power, but there was nothing. She couldn't tell who it was or when they left, guessing they probably got away safely hours ago. Major Han Lai started putting the pieces together. The timeline was just too perfect. The seeker must have climbed the mountain right before they sealed it off. He realized that for someone with thunder-related powers, the storm wasn't a punishment, it was a golden opportunity. That's when he came to a chilling conclusion. This person didn't just survive the storm, they were the reason the energy disappeared. He wondered if it was just a lucky accident, or if this person was one step ahead of them the whole time. He looked at his subordinate, his face grim. He told her that people like this are the most dangerous kind of threat because they have no idea whose side they are on. An unknown power that strong could be a disaster waiting to happen. Meanwhile, miles away, Su Chen sneezed, completely unaware he was being talked about. Back on the mountain, Major Han Lai gave his final order. They had to find this person immediately, no matter the cost. Major Han Lai decided on a temporary codename for the unknown seeker, a name that perfectly captured the overwhelming power they were dealing with, the Tyrant. The higher-ups had a plan. They hoped the Union could recruit this new powerhouse, codenamed the Tyrant. In the meantime, they would keep the whole thing quiet and verify the information. Back on the mountain, an officer reported that a high-ranking applicant was already trying to make contact with their mystery man. That's when Major Han turned his attention to a young woman in his squad, ordering Su Qingying to submit her report. The girl froze in panic. Trying to stay calm, Su Qingying began her report. She explained that this was the same applicant who had purified the class pollution anomaly at the university's north gate. Internally, she was screaming. She couldn't let them figure out who she really was. She continued, saying his movements were incredibly hard to track. She told them she'd found the body of a mutated rabbit he'd taken down, and based on the evidence, she believed he possessed a powerful scorching solar attribute. Honestly, she was just making it up as she went. She knew the information had to be half true so they'd believe her. If she'd said nothing, her cover would have been completely blown. Major Han seemed to buy it. He acknowledged her findings about the solar attribute and told her she'd done a good job. He praised her, saying they needed more young people like her to push things forward. Su Qingying quickly saluted, promising to keep working hard. With the meeting wrapping up, Major Han decided they'd just release some misleading news about natural disasters to cover their tracks. He also mentioned he wasn't a fan of posting about spiritual energy online, worried that people with bad intentions might exploit it. Meanwhile, at Fang Yi's home, someone was practicing a new skill. It was called the Golden Sun breathing technique. Just a touch from his hand sent waves of golden energy pouring into the couch, making it bubble and dissolve like it was nothing. After settling into his new powers, Su Chen got himself a new coat. As he put it on, he could feel a clear change. The thunder attribute had physically transformed his right hand, making it the strongest part of his body. He felt like he was on the verge of another breakthrough. But the most surprising thing was how easy it was to control. This thunder attribute, which should have been incredibly violent, was acting like a tame kitten in his hand. He remembered the unbearable pain when he first activated his solar attribute. He figured his body must have weakened the thunder power as it absorbed it. Then he remembered what the system said. It deals 300% critical damage to evil creatures. He couldn't wait to test it out. Just then, his train of thought was broken by a notification on his phone. He'd set up alerts from online forums after the last incident. He knew these national emergency warnings were more than just news. For people with powers, they were invitations to find opportunities. And for him, that temptation was irresistible, even if it cost him his life. The alert was about a huge explosion at a chemical factory. The official story was environmental pollution, but Su Chen immediately felt like something was wrong. An incident of this scale was too suspicious. He scrolled through the online comments. People near the factory were all describing the same thing, a strange, sinister coldness. That phrase clicked in his mind. He knew that feeling. This was no accident. Suddenly, it all clicked. A memory from his past life hit him like a truck, a terrifying, evil creature he'd faced before. He realized with horror that the creature from the chemical factory incident was the same one from his nightmares. A beast that shouldn't exist. He knew exactly what these things were. They loved the darkness. They could start as any plant or animal, but once they transformed, they became intelligent and incredibly powerful hunters. This thing was 100 times more dangerous than the rabbit beast he'd fought before. He knew he had to stop it tonight before it evolved any further. A grin spread across his face. It was the perfect time to test out his new Thunder attribute and its 300% critical strike power in a real fight. Out in the city, the rain poured down. The streets were empty, completely unaware of the monster hiding in the shadows. But Su Chen wasn't the only one hunting it. An official extermination team was on the move, but they were already in trouble. A message came in from headquarters. They'd lost track of the anomaly codenamed Candlelight Night. The report continued with a chilling detail. The creature was known for merging with the darkness, making a faint crackling sound when it got close. And it loved to eat people. The team leader knew the storm would make the creature active. He told his squad that it would start feeding soon, and they couldn't let that happen. Back at headquarters, an operator received the message. He immediately updated the file for the anomaly codenamed Candlelight Night. The entire command center was on high alert. The request to exterminate the creature was upgraded to a priority B threat, with an expected completion time of 12 hours. Out on the streets, the team pushed forward. Headquarters warned them to track the target, but their top priority was to stay alive. The leader simply acknowledged the order and kept moving. The leader looked over a map of the city, clearly frustrated. He knew 12 hours wasn't fast enough, but it was the best headquarters could offer. The country was huge, and these mutations were spreading everywhere. Just then, a message came through from HQ. They had a team leader from the Spiritual Energy Association nearby, a woman named Su Qingying. They could send her to help. The team leader was relieved, saying he'd heard about her achievements. Elsewhere, Su Qingying seemed a little surprised by her own fame. A moment later, their backup arrived, landing on a rooftop above them. But she didn't look happy to be there. She immediately accused the team leader of being the reason she had to work overtime. This guy wasn't having it. He snapped back that they were dealing with Candlelight Night, a creature that eats people. This wasn't just overtime. He then asked her if that was really how she asked for help. Su Qingying just turned her back on them. She announced that if the other team was so strong, they clearly didn't need her assistance. Her team was leaving. Even her own squad was shocked, whispering about how ruthless she was being. The team leader immediately backed down. He apologized for his harsh words and begged her to cooperate. He explained that Candlelight Night was incredibly dangerous. Without her ability to track it, it wasn't just his team that would be wiped out. All the city's residents would die. The city was soaked in a heavy, unending rain. With Su Qingying now on board, the two teams stood together on a rooftop, ready to hunt. Su Qingying raised her hand, a spike of blue energy forming above her palm. A moment later, she announced that she'd found the creature and told them to follow. Deep in the city's shadows, their target, Zhu Yi, was waiting. The file on this thing was simple. It loved dark, damp places, and it loved to eat people. The team looked down at the creature below. The leader confirmed the target and gave the order to start the operation. But the creature was fast. It sensed them immediately and took off. The leader shouted for the sabotage team to get into formation. His team moved instantly, surrounding the creature from all sides, east, north, west, and south. They dropped down on it from above, completing the encirclement and trapping the monster. The first soldier moved in, landing a heavy kick right into the creature's side. The monster hit the ground hard, cracking the concrete. It was hurt, but it was also furious. It let out a roar, and a wave of pure dark energy exploded outwards. The blast was powerful. The team leader screamed for everyone to stay away from the sound waves. The commander gritted his teeth, admitting that Zhu Yi was even more powerful than they expected. He knew if they hadn't pulled back just now, that blast would have shattered their bones. Leaving this thing to run loose in the city would be a complete disaster. The monster threw its head back and roared, gathering a strange green energy in its mouth. Instead of an attack, it spat the energy onto the ground. The concrete started to hiss and melt away. One of the soldiers recognized the attack. It was corrosive dark energy, something that could break down anything it touched. Commander Su ordered everyone to stay alert and hold their formation. She knew it couldn't dig an escape tunnel that fast. Their mission had just changed. Now they had to gather intel. The creature, Zhu Yi, let out a scream and tried to fly off. The team leader roared at his squad not to let it get away. It dove straight down between the dark buildings, leaving a trail of green energy in its wake. The team tracked it to an abandoned factory, but Commander Su stopped them. She could feel the spiritual energy in the area suddenly spike. She ordered most of her team to stay outside while she and a few others went in. Inside, she raised her wrist to check a device. The team leader asked if it was a new gadget from the association. She confirmed it was, explaining that it measures energy levels. She pointed out that Zhu Yi's reading was 48, just under the maximum a single team could handle. But then the number on her watch shot past 80 and kept climbing. Her face went pale. This place didn't just have one anomaly, there was something else in here with them. And that's when they saw it. A pair of huge glowing eyes stared down at them from the darkness above. It was a trap. Zhu Yi had lured them here on purpose. The commander screamed for everyone to fall back immediately. She had a plan. They would head straight for the gate. If the monster tried to stop them, it would have to show itself. She fired a blast of energy, leading the charge. One of the team members cries out as he's struck. He realizes the green mist filling the factory isn't just for show, it's a poison, and it's already in his system. Commander Su tries to raise her team, but there's only silence. The poison is blocking her senses, cutting her off from everyone. That's when she puts it all together. Zhu Yi led them here on purpose, straight into the lair of another monster. She suspects it's a giant snake. And there it was. A giant shadowy snake loomed over her in the darkness. She understood now, unlike Zhu Yi's dark energy, this black mist was pure poison, and they'd been breathing it since they walked in. The gas was designed to be a perfect trap. It numbed their senses while draining their spiritual energy. Any attempt to fight back would only exhaust them faster. She could feel her own power fading away. She was amazed by the monster's intelligence. It had set a trap with overwhelming strength and cunning. Her energy completely gone, she collapsed to the ground, thinking this was the end. But then a massive explosion tore a hole right through the factory wall. Commander Su looked up, her eyes wide with shock. A figure dropped down from the opening. It was Su Chen, his eyes glowing with power. He landed with enough force to crack the metal floor, stomping on the creature that had been tormenting the soldiers. He looked up at the giant serpent and immediately identified it as a darkness-type monster. The snake didn't hesitate, lunging forward to attack. But it wasn't alone. The smaller creature that lured the team here tried to ambush him from behind. Su Chen dodged the attack like it was nothing. He snatched the little monster right out of the air. The thing was screeching, but it was completely helpless in his grip. Our boy just let it bite him, not even flinching. He'd already figured out their whole plan. One monster lures people into the trap and the other finishes the job. He sarcastically called them a clever pair. He channeled pure lightning through his body, frying the little monster instantly. At the same time, the giant snake launched a blast of fire right at him. But Su Chen met fire with even bigger fire. A huge flame whip erupted from his hand, completely overpowering the snake's attack. He calmly asked the monster if it was afraid of fire. The flame whip was gone. Now Su Chen was holding a glowing golden sword, diving straight for the giant serpent. His eyes were burning. He basically told the monster to watch closely because this was about to be quick. The serpent fired a blast of green energy. But Su Chen's blade, crackling with lightning, sliced right through the attack and connected with the monster's head. The creature's head just dissolved into a pile of green goo. It looked like the fight was over. But Su Chen didn't even smile. He knew it wasn't going to be that simple. And he was right. The green goo swirled back together and the serpent reformed with 3 heads instead of 1. Just as he expected, it had a hidden move. But before the monster could even attack, it started screaming. Blue electricity was tearing through its body from the inside. Turns out our boy had a hidden move of his own. He calmly explained his whole plan. He'd sensed this creature's dark aura was way more intense than Zhu Yi's, so he knew a simple attack wouldn't work. The fiery blade was just a distraction. The real goal was to use it as a conductor, secretly pumping the serpent's body full of thunder energy. The monster had walked right into his trap. As the serpent's body was completely engulfed in flames, Su Chen started breaking down the whole situation. He realized Zhu Yi was just a sneaky, low-level threat. This snake, though, this thing was on a whole other level. That's when he noticed something on his arm, snake scales. He realized the creature was a mutated monster that used silent, deadly attacks. Its venom was designed to paralyze you instantly, but somehow he could still feel a slight sting. Turns out his body had its own defense system. His Yang Flame attribute got rid of the poison, while his Thunder power purified his body. The combination of the two meant he could actually feel the attack, turning the serpent's deadliest weapon into a warning sign. For anyone else, though, this poison would have been a death sentence. Even elite hunters with protective gear wouldn't have stood a chance. He finally understood their strategy. Zhu Yi would lure people into a perfect trap and the serpent would finish them off. They must have taken out a lot of people this way. But now, all that was left of their reign of terror was a pile of ashes. The inner flame was powerful, but he had to admit the thunder power was way more effective. He wondered if this meant his combat skills were now among the best in the entire Vanguard team. He just stood there for a moment, watching the last of the creature burn away. The fight was over. He thought it was all over. But as the flames died down, he realized someone else was still in the room. Then he heard a cough coming from the smoke. There was a survivor. It was a young woman. She was clearly weakened by the poison, but she was still hanging on. He recognized her. It was that girl from the association, Sue. He walked over and told her to drop the act. He said she wasn't very good at playing dead. The poor girl was completely embarrassed. She tried to explain that she wasn't faking, she'd just woken up from the awful smell. Su Chen actually seemed impressed. He explained that all her teammates were out, but she was strong enough to keep a defensive aura up. She was stunned that he could see the sliver of spiritual energy that was protecting her. Looking at the massive, burnt skeleton, she couldn't wrap her head around how he defeated both monsters. Su Chen just told her she could stop hiding her face as long as she promised to keep his identity a secret. She noticed his attitude was much friendlier this time. With the situation handled, Su Chen announced that he was going to leave. The girl Su tried to stop him, wanting to talk more, but he just told her to handle the cleanup. Before she could say another word, he leaped straight through the hole in the ceiling and was gone. As he flew through the air, he was glad she didn't see him try to absorb the monster's dark energy. The chilling feeling was just disgusting. He figured his body must have rejected the dark aura, since even the system didn't respond. Then he realized with a bit of shame that he didn't even get a good look at her face. Back in the warehouse, Sue stared at the hole in the ceiling. It was clear he still didn't trust the association. With the danger gone, she went to wake up her teammates. The first guy started to stir, groaning as he opened his eyes. The soldier shot up, immediately yelling that they'd been ambushed. He was still in a complete panic from the attack. The soldier asked what was going on, completely confused by the pure yang energy filling the air. Sue explained that another vanguard had come to help them. She admitted that she believed he was the very person she'd been sent to find, a rare, high-tier Yang user. She confessed that she hadn't confirmed his identity yet. In fact, he had somehow counter-tracked her and knew she was watching him all along. The other soldiers couldn't believe it. To take on Zhu Yi and the giant serpent all by himself, they wondered what kind of monster he could be. One of the soldiers asked where Zhu Yi's body was. He decided they should start cleaning up the scene and prepare the remains to be sent back to the association. As he got closer, he was hit by a wave of brutal energy. He recoiled, asking Su how the savior's attribute could be Yang. The leftover energy crackling around the monster's corpse was pure, intense lightning. They found Zhu Yi's corpse and the thunder energy was undeniable, insanely pure, a high-level attribute. The soldier came up with a new theory. Maybe two different high-level vanguards showed up, one to take down the snake and another to deal with Zhu Yi. Su knew that wasn't it. How could she even begin to explain that it was only one person? No one would ever believe her. Having just one top-tier attribute made someone a genius. A vanguard with two was practically unheard of. A flamewalker of the sun and a thunder tyrant. She was left with one single, overwhelming question. What kind of monster was he? As the team regrouped, two of them broke down, crying and hugging their captain, Xiao Su. They were just so relieved she was alive. She knew the association had basically sent them on a suicide mission. The investigators were only supposed to show up to collect their bodies. Now the main task fell to the investigators. They swarmed the area, scanning the leftover spirit energy and analyzing every trace to piece together what happened during the fight. One of the investigators approached Xiao Su and her team. He explained that based on the attack patterns and the way the monsters were eliminated, they had come to a conclusion. He told them there was a 99% chance that both anomalies were taken down by the exact same person. The team was stunned. The soldiers couldn't believe it. A dual high-level attribute vanguard. Something they thought was a mistake. They knew either of those monsters could have wiped them out easily. They were all at the Ghost Axe level, but the difference in power was just staggering. Xiao Su activated her comms. She reported to headquarters that her target had reappeared and that all the data on him needed to be updated immediately. She confirmed that both the target, who she called the Tyrant, and the north gate of the university were within her monitoring area. On the other end of the line, her commander listened calmly. After a moment, he gave her a new order. She was to stop her mission for now. The commander explained his thinking. This mystery man had saved their lives and eliminated the anomalies, so he clearly wasn't an enemy of the association. He ordered Xiao Su to back off for now to leave a good impression. She understood, but she had a theory of her own about what happened before the Tyrant leveled up. The commander asked her to explain. She told him that back on the mountain, she felt an incredibly powerful aura from his location. At the time, she suspected he had a spirit weapon, but it seemed unlikely. Now that they knew he was a dual attribute vanguard, things were different. The commander was doubtful. He explained that for someone to have a spirit weapon without any outside help or resources was nearly impossible. He added that the investigators at the scene didn't detect any third type of spirit energy, which a weapon would have definitely left behind. But Xiao Su held her ground. She insisted that when she first encountered him, she definitely sensed the Yang-attributed energy of a spirit weapon. Her certainty made the commander think. He came up with a wild new possibility. Maybe the weapon's energy wasn't from an object, but from the man himself. He theorized that if their target was a spirit creator realm expert, he could create his own weapon out of thin air. Xiao Su was floored. The commander reminded her that there are less than 5 spirit creators in the entire world, but the idea of a third attribute was even crazier. He explained that different attributes are supposed to repel each other inside a body, making it almost impossible to host more than one. No vanguard had ever had 3 at the same time. The commander ended the call with a heavy thought. He just hoped a man this powerful wouldn't one day become an enemy to all of humanity. Meanwhile, Su Chen was just taking a shower, completely unaware that the world's top brass was debating what kind of monster he was. As he dried off, Su Chen's mind was on the bigger picture. The official spirit energy revival was less than a year away, but things were already getting bad. Anomalies were appearing more often and they were getting more violent. He knew that many vanguards like him had started training on their own. Once their powers awakened, they could feel the changes in the world far more than normal people. Even without official support, these independent fighters were generally reaching at least the Ghost Axe stage. He thought about how the government was handling things. Right now, they were being friendly to independent vanguards. It meant that for the time being, both sides were just watching each other. The anomalies were still mostly under control, so no major fights had broken out yet. But the government was also trying to quietly sound the alarm while protecting the public. To Su Chen, it was obvious. They weren't confident they could handle what would happen when the Cultivation era was revealed to everyone. The population this large, telling the truth would cause complete chaos. Riots, mass deaths, the recognized vanguards couldn't possibly handle that level of unrest. The internal and external threats would just make everything collapse faster. In the end, a soft approach was probably for the best. He thought back to the fight in the factory. He couldn't shake the feeling that the whole riot might have been premeditated. What really worried him was how fast the anomalies were evolving. After touching the black mist, he realized it was a sub-branch of the dark attribute called shadow attribute. The system confirmed it was the natural enemy of vanguards and couldn't be absorbed. These things were smarter than simple beasts. They enjoyed hunting humans, but to them, a vanguard's body was an even greater prize. Sometimes they even worked together to set traps. If he hadn't followed that vanguard team, they wouldn't have made it out alive. And if just a sub-attribute was this sinister, the full dark attribute must be overwhelmingly dangerous. The system said the shadow attribute temporarily couldn't be absorbed. That one word got him thinking. If he could meet the right conditions and absorb it, He could turn the deadliest power for humans into his own personal weapon. That would be a game changer. He took stock of his arsenal. He had the golden sun breathing technique, the hundredfold refined divine thunder, and the inner flame for his blade. These were all high-level attributes with perfect techniques to match. At his current Ghost Axe 3-star level, very few vanguards could even touch him. But he knew it wasn't nearly enough. Just then, his train of thought was broken by his phone ringing. It was his aunt. He picked it up a little surprised. He wondered why she was calling so suddenly. His aunt asked how he was doing, then got straight to the point. His cousin was coming to study nearby, and she didn't want the girl staying in a hotel alone. She asked if his cousin could stay with him for a few days. His cousin, he had to rack his brain to even remember her. All he could recall was that she was a top student who loved to study. Honestly, he couldn't even remember what she looked like. Since it was family, Su Chen agreed without a second thought. He told his aunt he had a spare room and to just send his cousin the address. His aunt was thrilled, offering to have his cousin bring some local snacks for him. Meanwhile, miles away, the cousin herself was busy at her computer. Su Chen thanked his aunt, confirming that his cousin would arrive the next afternoon. But just as the call was ending, his aunt said something that made him pause in confusion. Turns out, his quiet, studious cousin was actually part of a martial vanguard team. She was in a group chat, telling her teammate she was staying at her cousin's place to play the part for a mission. Pop-up on her screen showed just how dangerous this mission was. A place once known as Influencer Town had been renamed Death Town after 3 more people disappeared. Just then, her mom came into the room, asking if she was all packed for her trip to Yongo Town. Ailint said she didn't want to be a bother, but her mom wouldn't hear it. She insisted it wasn't safe for a girl to be in a hotel alone and that she trusted her cousin to look after her. Her mom gave her one last lecture, telling her to be on her best behavior and not cause any trouble. Ailint just sighed and agreed, ready to head out. Ailint took a deep breath. She reminded herself to take it one step at a time. After all, dealing with her cousin had to be easier than fighting monsters. The next day, the sun was shining bright. In the middle of the city, people were going about their day as usual. Ailint made her way through the streets, pulling her suitcase behind her. She stopped to check the map on her phone. The little blue dot showed she had finally arrived. This had to be the place. She looked up and saw a man walking out of the building. When he got closer, she realized it was her cousin. She was completely stunned. He looked nothing like she remembered. Su Chen broke the silence, asking if she was in town for summer camp. They sat down for a bit. Su Chen told her to just call if she needed anything, and she politely thanked him. He handed her the spare key, pointing out that her room was right across the hall from his. As he walked away, she felt relieved. Her cousin seemed easygoing and wouldn't get in her way. But then she remembered a strange feeling she got from him. She replayed the moment in her mind. She had definitely sensed a faint spiritual energy coming from him. The thought hit her, could her cousin also be a foreigner? If so, this whole quiet life might just be a cover, just like her summer camp. She opened up a group chat on her phone. Her teammates were talking about how chaotic things were getting. Apparently, some ridiculously powerful guy had shown up in a recent fight, creating a sun with a single strike. Her team agreed they all needed to be careful. The spiritual energy revival hadn't even officially started, and there were already monsters like that running around. Fang Yi decided it was best to lay low for now. She couldn't risk cultivating and having her cousin find out. 3 days passed just like that. The cousin was getting seriously frustrated. She realized living with Su Chen was making it almost impossible to continue her cultivation in secret. Her biggest fear was her golden sun breathing technique. It was so incredibly bright, she was terrified he would spot the glow. She couldn't believe she'd never noticed how flashy it was before. Later that night, she called him for dinner, showing off the huge meal she'd prepared for them. Su Chen told her she was being too polite and offered to do the dishes, but she insisted. He watched her, thinking to himself that her manners were flawless and her cleaning was almost obsessive. He just kept eating, thinking things over, but he knew this was all part of his own plan. By letting her play the part of the perfect guest, he was actually getting her to lower her guard around him. Suddenly, phone on the cuddy table lit up, breaking the silence. They both looked over and Su Chen asked if it was a friend of hers. The cousin Lin Yi told the person on the phone she was heading to her room to talk. Su Chen just walked away, acting like he didn't notice a thing. But a moment later, her expression changed. She had just gotten some shocking news. The great change was happening again tomorrow. She quickly confirmed the details, promising to be at the location by 3 in the afternoon, no matter what. She agreed to meet at the entrance to Yonghua Town. Outside, Su Chen stood silently. He had heard every single word. So it was true, his cousin was one of the forerunners. Luckily for him, her current strength wasn't high enough to sense his own power. He could feel her energy. For a high schooler, being in 1-star Ghost Axe Realm Cultivator was impressive. He figured her immense talent was probably why she acted so weird. The pieces finally clicked into place. Her summer camp story was just a cover. She must have gotten a tip about the great change and used visiting him as an excuse to be here. But he wasn't worried. Every great change was an opportunity, a chance to get stronger. He clenched his fist, already wondering what kind of power would appear in Yonghua Town this time. He decided then and there that whatever power emerged from this event, he would be the one to claim it. Back in her room, Lin Yi suddenly froze. She felt a strange chill. She glanced out the window, wondering if she had just imagined someone watching her. The next day, the sun rose over Yonghua Town. At the entrance, someone was already calling her name. Her teammate immediately started asking about the cousin she was staying with. Yi just described him as a good, but totally average-looking guy. She made it clear he wasn't the kind of handsome celebrity her friend was into. The friend let out a sigh, clearly a little let down by the news. But she quickly reminded another teammate, Lady Fang, not to forget that Yi always describes herself as ordinary too. A woman in a purple dress announced that since everyone was there, it was time to get to business. One of the members asked if their mysterious seventh teammate was a no-show again. Someone else confirmed it was just the 6 of them. The woman in purple just shrugged it off, saying they were all used to her being mysterious. With that, the team started to head out. They weren't alone. From a nearby building, Su Chen was watching their every move. He sized them up, realizing that his cousin's team was surprisingly strong, despite trying to act low-key. Their weakest member was a solid Ghost Axe Realm 2-star, and the man who spoke earlier was even a 3-star. He also realized there was another strong member who was often absent. His attention then turned to the real reason they were all here. Something was happening on the mountain overlooking the town. A giant glowing vine had appeared out of nowhere, hanging down from the clouds like something out of a fairy tale. The problem was this thing was a complete mystery. It would appear around Yonghuo town at random times, and no one had any idea what it was or where it came from. The intel the vanguards had was useless. It wasn't a natural disaster. It was some kind of object from another world that just materialized out of thin air. It didn't cause any damage. It just drifted silently, flashing into sight before disappearing again. As the team made their way through the mountains, the woman in purple suddenly stopped. Her eyes were fixed on something in the distance. That was it. Seeing it in person was something else entirely. It was hard to believe something so huge and strange could even exist. But as they stood there, one of them turned to the others confused. She asked why they weren't moving forward anymore. The woman in the visor was shaking. She admitted that seeing it up close sent a chill down her spine. She asked if anyone had seen the rumors about it on the internal forums. She explained that she knew someone on a team that found the vine before. They were all powerful vanguards, much stronger than her own team. They decided to try and touch it. After that, they all just disappeared. The team stared up at the vine, finally understanding the truth. This thing wasn't just a mystery, it was a graveyard. The woman in the visor started to panic. She was convinced they were going to end up just like the last team. When the other team disappeared, they were completely consumed. There was nothing left of them, not even a grave to be found. The woman in the visor was completely overwhelmed. She admitted that she always thought she was ready to die for the mission, but this was different. Her instincts were screaming that this vine was a powerful, unknown anomaly, and for the first time she was genuinely afraid. Tears streamed down her face. The poor woman confessed that she wasn't ready to have her life end here. She wanted to quit. The redhead agreed, saying they all felt it. The woman in the red hoodie then explained what was wrong. She said the vine had a desolate aura, like it could drain all life and vitality from anything it touched. But just as the woman in the visor was about to completely break, her teammate grabbed her hand. She looked her straight in the eyes and reminded her that this was the path they chose as martial pioneers. From a distance, Su Chen watched everything unfold. He could feel the heavy death energy coming off the vine. He thought to himself that out of all the strange things he'd seen, this one felt the most unpleasant. He realized the vine was a fake. It was supposed to be a plant, a symbol of life, but it felt completely dead, like a corpse pretending to be alive, stripped of all its spiritual energy. Back with the group, the woman in the red hoodie took charge. She told everyone they didn't have time to overthink it. Since it was too dangerous to get close, they would just observe and sense its energy from here. The team agreed. They spread out across the clifftop, making sure to stay within sight of each other as they prepared to analyze the strange vine from a safe distance. The woman in the red hoodie, Yi, found a spot high up in a tree. She figured it was a safe enough distance to observe the vine's energy without getting too close. From his hiding spot, Su Chen watched them. He had to admit they were being smart about it, keeping a safe distance to sense the energy without being reckless. He was especially impressed with his cousin. She had picked the perfect spot to get the most benefit without being a coward about it. But then her energy spiked. Su Chen couldn't believe it. She was already having a breakthrough, touching the threshold of 3 stars. Down below, her teammates were cheering. His cousin's talent was honestly extraordinary. The massive energy surge didn't go unnoticed. Deep in the forest, the giant vine began to stir, its roots glowing with a sickly green light. Suddenly, one of the men looked up in horror. He screamed that the vine was coming right for them. Somehow, it had spotted them from all the way across the valley. Absolute panic broke out. The team scattered, screaming for help as the green tendrils shot out from the darkness trying to grab them. The team leader realized what was happening. Yi's breakthrough was making too much noise, drawing the creature in. He warned everyone to stay away from the tendrils. If that desolate aura touched them, they'd be melted on the spot. Up in the tree, Yi was completely lost in her own world, totally unaware that her power-up had just doomed her entire team. One of the women begged the others not to leave, screaming that Yi would be in trouble. But the woman in the purple dress just snapped back, furious. She refused to risk her life for someone who was so reckless. The team leader stepped in, telling her to calm down. He said life and death are fated, and if they didn't leave right now, they'd die with her. It wasn't worth it for someone they barely knew. And with that, this coward turned and ran for his life. But seeing him run, something in the woman snapped. She screamed at him to get lost, declaring that she wouldn't abandon a teammate. From his hiding spot, Su Chen watched the whole pathetic scene unfold. His cousin's team was leaving her to die. He knew she was just a student and had no idea what she was up against. The vine's power was terrifying, and he wasn't sure if he was strong enough to save her, but time was running out. But then he remembered the promise he made to his aunt, that he'd look after her. For Su Chen, a promise was something that could never be broken. Down below, the woman in purple tried to fight back, but it was useless. The vines were everywhere, moving too fast. In seconds, they had her completely wrapped up, and she let out a terrified scream. The vine lunged forward, a sharp point aimed right at Yi's head. She She didn't even flinch, still lost in her own world. But just as it was about to hit, a flash of gold shot through the air. Su Chen had made his move. Down below, the two women could only scream Yi's name, thinking they were too late. He unleashed a wave of pure fiery energy. It slammed into the massive vines with incredible force, stopping the attack cold. Su Chen just floated there, his golden aura pushing back the darkness. The team members who had run away could only stare in disbelief. One of them stammered, asking if the vine was actually retreating. It wasn't just retreating, it was terrified. The attacks had completely stopped. The team leader's eyes went wide. He recognized that energy, it was an extreme yang attribute, the perfect weapon against this thing's dark power. He realized this newcomer had to be another foreigner just like them. And honestly, the guy was having a complete meltdown. He thought he was a genius for reaching Ghost Axe 3 stars so quickly. He believed he was one of the fastest in the whole country. But the power he was witnessing now was on a level he couldn't even understand. The team leader's whole world was falling apart. He'd always thought his talent was on par with the best like Yi. But compared to this new guy, he felt like a tiny star next to a blazing moon. All his hard work suddenly felt pointless. He stared up at the figure on the rocks. This man didn't just beat him, he crushed the very idea of what a forerunner was supposed to be. He couldn't even begin to understand what he was looking at. While the others were having a breakdown, Su Chen was perfectly calm. That's when the system chimed in. It had analyzed the vine's extreme wood attribute and given him a new skill, everlasting vitality. Basically, he could now absorb life force from his surroundings to heal himself instantly. Down below, Yi was now surrounded by a powerful green aura. Su Chen watched, impressed. He realized that as long as there was any life nearby, this kind of wood attribute power was like a perpetual motion machine, constantly recharging itself. The system got to work, extracting the attributes from the vine. He had a new attribute, desolation. The system explained it could instantly create an aura that eats away at all life force nearby. Su Chen opened his eyes, a green glow fading from them. He finally understood. That's why the vine could only grow in such a dead place. If it grew anywhere else, it would have drained the life from everything for miles around. This new desolation attribute was brutal, it just took life force from others. The team members he'd saved rushed over, bowing and thanking him. They told him that without his help, they would have all been finished. Su Chen just waved it off. He told them not to worry about it, explaining that he was the one who really benefited from the situation. He'd gained a new attribute because of them. And just like that, he was gone. The remaining team members watched him disappear into the distance. The man asked what they were supposed to do now. The woman was thinking about their own team's conflict, realizing that in a real crisis, people show their true colors. The team leader decided their best move was to stick with their own group, especially now that Lin Yi had reached Tier 3. He told the others to focus less on their internal drama and more on the mysterious man who just saved them all. That's when the blue energy sphere around Yi started to fade. Her eyes snapped open, glowing with power. She was awake. Her teammates shouted her name as she flew over to them, completely recovered. Yi finally came to. She looked around at her fallen teammates, completely confused about what had happened while she was unconscious. That's when she felt it. A powerful yang attribute still lingered in the air, so strong she could feel the heat from a distance. One of her teammates started to explain everything that went down while she was out. The man couldn't get over it. He couldn't believe someone that strong actually existed, calling him an absolute monster. He reminded her that the vine they couldn't even scratch was forced back by a single attack from this guy. Now, it was hiding in the sky, too terrified to come near them. The man pointed out that even though their savior was gone, his presence was so intimidating that the vine was still acting like a tamed chicken. Miles away, Yi finally got back to her apartment. She opened the door and froze. Su Chen was sitting right there, casually greeting her as if nothing had happened. He commented that she looked pale, asking if studying was getting to be too much. He was playing completely dumb, but she just stared at him, putting the pieces together. Su Chen told her she'd worked hard and should go rest, even offering to order takeout. She just quietly agreed and headed for her room. Once inside, Yi leaned against the door, completely spent. Using her spiritual power was mentally draining, more tiring than staying up for months straight. She knew that even though she was now powerful enough to survive for days without sleep, her old, normal life was gone forever. The world was changing, and this was her fate now. Elsewhere, Su Chen was already on the move. That's when she saw something on her phone that made her pause. It was a message in her group chat from someone named Garen, asking to be notified if anyone found traces of the strong person who'd saved them. Apparently, this Garen almost never spoke in the group. Another member, Fang Yi, replied. He wondered if the man who saved them could be the same one who became famous at the Dark River. And if it was, why would a big shot like that bother with them? The post described the incident in detail, a powerhouse with a high-level yang attribute. His attack was like a blinding white light that swallowed the sky. The warning was clear. In the entire nation, no one at the same level could face him head-on. If you see him, you run. And while they were talking about this terrifying, godlike figure, our boy was just getting on his bike. With his friend safe in the hospital, Su Chen's mind turned to his own evolution. He considered the desolation attribute. It was connected to plants, but its core nature was corrosion, an evil power that could have bad side effects if he used it on himself. Plus, there was a good chance it would clash with the thunder attribute he already had. He needed a different approach, something like that strange ghost vine. The vine only grew because it sensed the rich spiritual energy in the area. It had chosen to evolve on its own, and that's how it gained the desolation attribute. A smile spread across his face. He knew exactly where to go. He rode straight to the city forest park. His plan was to find a plant that resonated strongly with his spiritual energy. He needed to find the perfect one to become the lucky vessel for his new power. He closed his eyes and focused, reaching out with his power. The response was immediate. A massive wave of green energy erupted from the ground, swirling around him. He realized this was the plants answering his call. The energy surged, but it still wasn't enough. He needed more, something with a stronger connection. And then he felt it, a single, powerful response from somewhere deep in the woods. He moved toward the source. Amidst all the green light, a single wildflower was glowing with its own brilliant aura. He reached out and touched it gently. The moment his finger made contact, the flower greedily drank in the spiritual energy. Hilariously, the little plant seemed to be enjoying it. Su Chen was impressed. For a simple wildflower, it was incredibly spiritual, acting like a little puppy soaking up all the power it could get. After it was full, it even nudged his fingers, asking for more. He smiled. In the entire forest, this one had the strongest reaction. It was the perfect vessel for the desolation attribute. With his choice made, he told the flower to get ready and then unleashed everything. The system asked if he wanted to implant the desolation attribute by force. He didn't even have to think about it. He accepted. A storm of green energy erupted from his hand, pouring directly into the small flower as his eyes glowed with power. The moment he confirmed it, a huge beam of green energy shot down from the sky, slamming right into the tiny wildflower. Su Chen watched as the flower began to change right before his eyes. Its petals opened wide, its leaves grew thicker, and a bright yellow light started glowing from its center. This was no longer just a wildflower. The thing just kept growing, and then its roots exploded into the ground. It started sucking up all the spiritual energy around it with so much force that it actually knocked Su Chen back. He realized the power was like a demon's touch. Everything around the flower started to wither and die. In just a few seconds, it had drained the life from an entire section of the city forest, and it was still spreading like crazy. All that stolen life force was being pulled into one spot, feeding the single glowing flower. Su Chen knew he had to stop it. If this kept up, the Spirit Kai Association would definitely notice the disturbance right in the middle of the city. He reached down and yanked the plant straight out of the ground. As he walked away, he noticed more surveillance cameras than usual, and the park was completely empty. That's when he looked down and saw that the flower was still absorbing energy, even though it wasn't connected to the soil anymore. He looked at it amazed. The absorption had slowed, but its spiritual power was still there. It wasn't just a powered-up plant anymore. He realized that by giving it an attribute, he had somehow broken its natural limits. This little wildflower had started to evolve. Just as the flower settled, a bright red light flashed through the woods. An alarm. The system was screaming that an abnormal value was exceeding its limits. He realized he must have triggered the surveillance. Without wasting a second, he grabbed his new plant and got out of it. But it was too late. Miles away, at the Spirit Kai Revival Plant Research Department, every single alarm was blaring. The technicians were scrambling as they watched the energy value spike completely out of control. An emergency team was sent in immediately, ordered to quarantine the entire park. No one was allowed in or out. One of the agents checked his wristband. The Spirit Kai reading was at 30. He couldn't believe it. He mentioned that any anomaly over 10 was enough for the military to take over, and this park had never even passed one before. As they moved deeper, one of them scanned the area. He reported that everything was normal, humidity, temperature, sunlight, but it was like all the plants had their life drained in just a few seconds. The team leader suggested they push forward to the center of the disturbance. But as they started to move, an older man on the team screamed at them to stop and not get any closer. He warned them not to touch anything. He knew exactly what this was. He told them it was the desolation attribute. The younger agents just stared, completely stunned. They'd heard the name but had never seen its effects. The old expert's eyes narrowed. He asked if they remembered the demonic vine, a monster that had already been classified as an 11 mutation. He explained that the vine was so deadly because it had the desolation attribute. It drains the life force from everything around it, leaving nothing but bones behind. The young agent started sweating, his face pale. He finally understood that he had been just one step away from becoming another victim. He asked the expert if he would have died the moment he stepped in. The old man confirmed it, explaining that plants with this attribute create a dead zone, devouring the life force of anything that enters. He told them about another case, a giant decaying tree that polluted an entire forest, taking down anything that got too close. He warned them that with the world changing, they couldn't underestimate plant mutations. As far as they knew, the desolation attribute was the strongest one out there. And now, a brand new source had just appeared. Just as he finished, a hand landed on his shoulder. Someone had walked up behind him, and a voice said they'd heard the situation. The agents turned, their eyes wide with shock. A man in a long military coat stood there, clearly in charge. It was Major Han. Major Han didn't waste a second. He ordered all researchers to suit up and follow his team into the contaminated zone. As they moved in, the ground crunched under their boots. Every plant in the area was dead and brittle. But as they swept the area, they found nothing. An agent reported that the desolation source was gone, and its energy was fading fast. In just 5 minutes, the concentration had dropped by 75%. Major Han ordered them to keep looking. His subordinate confirmed, and they got to work. The two of them knelt down, unleashing their own energy to the ground for any leftover traces. The streams of light flowed through the dead forest, moving towards a single spot. It all converged on one place, a freshly dug hole in the ground. One of the agents stared in disbelief, realizing the source wasn't gone. It had been taken. The researcher stammered that it was impossible. A desolation zone should be a death sentence. Major Han's face was grim. If someone really managed to dig it out, then their identity was extremely suspicious. Agent told Major Han that they couldn't find any trace of the top-level cultivator's power. but she explained that their data analysis had flagged a suspect whose movements matched both mutation incidents. She handed him the tablet with all the information. The tablet showed the suspect's name, Fang Yi. The agent told him that this was most likely the person they were looking for. With the info handed over, she said the next move was up to his association. Major Han simply accepted the report. 2 hours later, Su Chen was back home. He'd found a pot for his new flower, amused that it was his first time ever raising one. He told the little plant to stop clinging to his hand, explaining that now that it had the desolation attribute, it was his new reliable assistant. He knew its special powers would be useful in a fight, creating unexpected advantages. And because it looked so ordinary, no one would ever suspect a thing. In combat, the best disguise is looking harmless. He mused that strength was only one part of the equation. The real key was who had the most hidden cards. Just then, his phone started ringing. The name on the screen was Old Wang. Su Chen looked surprised. He remembered Old Wang. It was his childhood friend who'd gone off to join the army 3 years ago. He remembered Wang Liang, his neighbor, his deskmate all through elementary and middle school. They were inseparable right up until his friend suddenly left to join the army. On the phone, Wang Liang was full of energy, telling Su Chen he was back and that they had to grab a drink at their old spot. Su Chen just smiled and agreed. His friend laughed, telling him he had a huge secret to share, something that would definitely shock him. The call ended. Wang Liang put his phone down on the table. Turns out he wasn't alone. He was in a dark room reporting to 2 officers. He confirmed he'd followed their instructions, but then asked them to guarantee his friend's safety if he wasn't the person they were looking for. The red-haired officer, Major Han, cut him off. She told him to just complete his mission and stay out of it. But then she added that if his friend really was innocent, he should give him a piece of advice. The 2 friends met up at their old spot, starting things off with a toast. Wang Liang talked about how much he'd been through in the army. Su Chen listened, thinking that his old friend seemed much more mature after 3 years away. A dark thought crossed Su Chen's mind. In his past life, he never saw Wang Liang again. As a soldier, his friend was most likely lost in some nameless battle during the chaotic times. He wondered if this time he could change his old friend's future. The conversation suddenly got serious. Wang Liang asked Su Chen if he'd run into anything strange lately, like monsters or other things from movies. Su Chen's eyes narrowed. He knew that someone in the army would be aware of the world changing. The way his friend asked the question, it wasn't casual, this was a test. He decided to cut right through it and asked his friend what he was really trying to say. Wang Liang looked troubled. He admitted he was there to give a warning, not just to catch up. He told Su Chen that soon things like diplomas and money would be completely worthless. The world was about to be turned upside down. Su Chen listened, but he'd already figured it all out. He knew soldiers were sworn to secrecy about spiritual energy. The truth was obvious. The military had already listed him as a target and they'd sent Wang Liang, his childhood friend, to test him. Wang Liang told him not to worry. As long as Su Chen didn't repeat a word of what was said, he'd be fine. Su Chen appreciated it. His friend had risked getting in serious trouble just to give him a heads up. Just then, Wang Liang's phone lit up with an urgent message. It was an emergency recall. He had 10 minutes to get to a target location. He answered the call, his expression suddenly tense. He hung up and shot out of his seat. He quickly apologized to Su Chen, explaining that the mission was urgent and he had to go immediately. As his friend was about to leave, Su Chen spoke up. He asked if this emergency had anything to do with the revival of spiritual energy. Wang Liang stopped in his tracks, stunned. Su Chen stood up and told him to take him along. He pointed out that this meeting was probably arranged by his superiors in the first place and that he trusted his friend wouldn't harm him. He explained that he wanted to know what was going on. If the army was involved, it had to be connected to the massive changes happening to the world. He knew the Spiritual Energy Association already handled anomalies, so he was curious what exactly the army was responsible for. This was his chance to find out the truth. So Wang Liang brought him along. They arrived at a massive military base called Restricted Zone Number 19. The moment they stepped onto the ground, Su Chen felt it. The spiritual energy here was incredibly dense, far beyond any polluted zone he'd ever experienced. Wang Liang reported in to the soldiers waiting for them. After a quick verification, they were allowed to pass. They were led toward a massive set of blast doors. As the gates slid open, an overwhelming wave of energy washed over them. Inside was a war zone. A massive mutated hound was being held back by dozens of soldiers, its body crackling with raw power. The creature was a beast. It unleashed a powerful energy blast from its mouth, tearing through the soldiers' defenses like they were nothing. A red-haired officer named Jai Lan was commanding the operation. She explained that the hound had a rare fusion attribute of darkness and flame, making it incredibly violent. It had already taken out several of her soldiers. Her eyes then fell on Su Chen. She turned on Wang Liang, furious, demanding to know why he brought an unauthorized person into a restricted zone. But she knew they didn't have time to argue. She ordered Wang Liang to get into the battle line. Still, she glanced over at Su Chen, wondering if this was really the guy they were looking for. His spiritual energy felt way too weak. She turned to Su Chen and gave him a cold warning. Since he was Wang Liang's friend, she'd let it slide for now. But once you enter a restricted zone, your life is your own problem, and everything he saw had to remain a secret. Su Chen simply nodded, understanding perfectly. With the introductions over, Jai Lan immediately barked out orders, sending 2 of her soldiers, Zhang Mai and Lai Yu, straight into the fight. Without a moment's hesitation, one of the soldiers leaped right at the massive beast, his hands glowing with power. At the same time, Jai Lan opened fire with her massive gun, sending a powerful blast of energy to back him up. The shot hit its mark, exploding right against the creature's side. The hound let out a furious howl. But the attack didn't finish it. Instead, the beast's eyes glowed with pure rage. It was only getting stronger. Someone screamed a warning. The hound's mutation was getting worse, and it lunged at the soldier Lai Yu with terrifying speed. The poor guy barely managed to block the attack, the force of the blow sending sparks flying everywhere. Jai Lan ordered her team to keep their distance, realizing they had to take the creature down before it finished evolving. She was proud of her unit's training and teamwork. But in the background, Su Chen just watched the whole thing with a calm, unreadable expression. Su Chen watched them fight, realizing their strength came from their teamwork. He knew every single person was essential to the unit, but their teamwork wasn't enough. Wang Liang screamed at his friend to get out of there, realizing he was no match for the beast. It was too late. A wave of dark energy slammed into the soldier, completely overwhelming him. Jai Lan immediately ordered all units to raise the alert level. She was yelling that no one was allowed to retreat. That's when the hound finished its transformation. It had fully fused with the darkness attribute, completing its mutation into something far more terrifying. The pressure was too much. Wang Liang was struggling to hold on, and his commanders knew he was in serious trouble. The hound struck again, sending the soldier flying through the air like a ragdoll. An alert went out to all units. The variant hound was no longer C-level, it had just been reclassified as a B-level threat. While everyone else panicked, Su Chen just stood there, watching silently. One of the soldiers was down, badly hurt. His friend rushed over to check on him. The poor guy explained that he'd tried to pour spiritual energy into the hound's restraining collar, but it backfired on him completely. Even as he was spitting up black gunk, he tried to tell everyone not to worry. He said the soldiers of Zone 19 would handle it. But Su Chen just stood there, watching everything unfold. The pressure was so intense that one of the soldiers dropped his weapon in fear. The commander wasn't giving up. She yelled at her troops, telling them they had to use any means necessary. They stood their ground, facing the massive beast that loomed over them. She screamed that they could not let a B-level variant escape, even if it cost them their lives. But right then, Su Chen just walked past her. The commander demanded to know what he was doing. He didn't answer. A massive wave of blue energy just exploded from his body. The energy crackled around Su Chen. With his eyes glowing, he looked at the massive beast and called it arrogant. The hound was gigantic, easily 10 times his size, but Su Chen didn't even flinch. He leaped into the air, promising to blow the creature away with what he called divine thunder. A massive beam of pure energy shot forward, slamming right into the hound's face. The whole area was engulfed in a blinding blue light. The shockwave sent the soldiers flying. Wang Liang couldn't believe it. He stammered that this was a B-level threat that even their commander couldn't handle alone. He looked at Jai Lan, finally understanding who his friend really was. The commander just stared, confirming that none of them were mistaken. As the smoke cleared, the hound was still standing, though it was badly wounded. Jai Lan finally said it out loud. He was truly a tyrant. Su Chen seemed almost annoyed that the beast wasn't dead yet. He calmly told the commander and Old Wang to fall back. Jai Lan was just staring, trying to process what she was seeing. She knew that taking down a B-level threat required a full team with soldiers ready to die. But this guy was doing it all by himself. She had to admit, this was the most extreme form of the lightning attribute she'd ever witnessed. She realized that power on this level was considered top tier in the entire country. And that's when a scary thought hit her. If he was this strong now, she couldn't even imagine how powerful he'd become in the future. She finally understood he truly deserved the title of tyrant. He just walked away from the blast, not even looking back. As he did, the blue light in his eyes slowly faded. The other soldiers were completely terrified. Wang Liang admitted that Su Chen's lightning was way scarier than the hound's darkness. He felt like he could handle the creature's power, but this was on another level. Su Chen gave a thumbs up to Old Wang, letting him know it was all over. His friend ran up, yelling that he'd been scared half to death. Old Wang was just amazed, saying he never knew his friend was this incredible. Then he gave him a friendly punch, laughing about how worried he'd been. Fang Yi put his arm around Old Wang, apologizing for dragging him into the mess. He explained that he had to follow military orders. Then he playfully teased his friend, asking why he was acting like a stranger after all this time. That's when the commander Jai Lan walked up to him. She looked Fang Yi straight in the eyes and thanked him for his help, offering her hand for a handshake. He just gave her a calm, knowing smile. He shook her hand, telling her not to mention it. He said he was really just there to save his friend. Jai Lan then introduced herself as the officer in charge of Forbidden Zone 019. She insisted that since he'd saved the entire zone, she needed his contact information to file a proper report. Fang Yi agreed without any issue. He glanced over at Old Wang, thinking how strange it was to see a high-ranking officer being so formal with his childhood friend. Jai Lan got straight to the point. She told Fang Yi his strength surpassed even the army's specially recruited foreigners. She said she truly wanted to invite him to join, but admitted that as a simple zone guard, her invitation didn't carry much weight. But what really shocked her was his power level. She figured he was at the Ghost Axe stage, but his actual strength was far beyond that. It was on the level of a spirit-forming venerable, which was almost unbelievable. Su Chen didn't miss a beat. He told her she was right, that her rank wasn't high enough to invite him. He said it so calmly, like there was nothing to be ashamed of, it was just a fact. Jai Lan explained that her team was just following orders from their superiors. Their real mission wasn't to fight the anomaly, it was to understand him. She was sure the higher-ups would come to invite him personally. Su Chen just smiled. He told her it wasn't that serious and that he actually respected them a lot. He admitted that not everyone has the courage to sacrifice themselves to protect others, and seeing them fight had genuinely moved him. His words clearly caught her off guard. She looked at him for a moment, then simply thanked him. So our boy made her an offer. He said if they ever ran into trouble again, they could call him for help. He explained it was his way of repaying them for protecting ordinary people. But he had one condition. His help couldn't interfere with his cultivation or restrict his freedom in any way. Jai Lan listened, her expression unreadable. She was clearly thinking over his terms. With the conversation over, she told Su Chen it was time for him to leave. She explained that she and Wang Liang still had to deal with the mutant's body, but she'd have someone escort him back safely. Watching them, Su Chen finally understood the military's role. They were stationed in the most dangerous, energy-rich zones. On one hand, it was to train and get stronger. On the other, it was to be the line in the sand, protecting ordinary people from the horrors out there. Back with the unit, Jai Lan told Wang Liang that his friend couldn't just be described as not simple anymore. She was convinced that what they witnessed was only the tiniest fraction of his real strength. She continued, saying that even that small display of power was enough to leave them all in the dust. To reach that level so quickly meant he had incredible perception, courage, and luck all rolled into one. Wang Liang, ever the opportunist, suggested that if she couldn't recruit Su Chen, maybe he should try since they were childhood friends. Jai Lan wasn't having it. She smacked the brat on the head and told him to get back to work. Later that night, Su Chen was thinking everything over. He realized that although his identity was exposed, he'd been careful. The only power he actually showed them was his lightning attribute. And judging by their attitude, he figured that might not be a bad thing at all. He'd learned his lightning attribute was extremely rare, maybe even one of a kind. Because it was so effective against darkness, the military would desperately want him on their side. To get him, they wouldn't threaten him. They'd give him influence, power, and access to the best information. He finally understood how this world worked. The army was the shield in the shadows, the nation's night watch. The Spiritual Energy Association was the cleanup crew, dealing with any threats that slipped through into the cities and keeping civilians safe. He realized the authorities had a two-part plan. The forbidden zones weren't just for defense, they were a signal that the world was changing, buying everyone precious time so they wouldn't be wiped out when the anomalies arrived. As he thought about it, his own energy began to stir. This place was perfect. Even after absorbing all that dark power, he hadn't been close to a breakthrough, but just sitting here, he could feel the spiritual energy overflowing inside him. He knew it was time. Miles away, a young woman was walking home. She wondered if her cousin was back yet. She smiled to herself, thinking about making him dinner to see if her cooking had gotten any better. That's when a massive pillar of golden light shot up into the sky. She froze, staring at it. Her eyes went wide. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She tried to figure out what was happening. At first, she thought it was someone advancing within the Ghost Act stage, but the aura was just too terrifying for that. Something was wrong with her guess. Then it hit her, this wasn't just any advancement. A forerunner was breaking through to the spirit-forming stage. She quickly realized her mistake. This wasn't a ghost soldier-level breakthrough. The energy was way too powerful. This was the spirit creation realm, and somehow a pioneer that strong was right by her side. The poor girl was completely stunned, staring up at the sky. Meanwhile, across the city, alarms were blaring. A system was screaming warnings that an anomaly value had hit 99, pinpointing the location of the energy spike. An officer immediately ordered all units to head to the target district. They couldn't believe an anomaly this powerful had appeared out of nowhere. A number that high, it was enough to destroy an entire city. Everyone in the command center watched the map, wondering what this meant. Had a new, powerful pioneer just appeared, or was this the beginning of a huge disaster? Major Han was about to request backup from headquarters, demanding they send every piece of advanced equipment they had. But just then, a soldier burst in and told him the alert was lifted. The anomaly was gone. It was just a pioneer's breakthrough. And the source of all that city-wide panic, he just calmly let out a breath. He had done it. He'd broken through to the spirit creation realm 1 star. He stretched a bit, thinking to himself that besides feeling a little lighter, there wasn't much of a difference. He looked down at his phone and saw a message from Wang Liang. It was about a mysterious fire that had broken out at Qingcheng University. The news was already spreading that this was the second anomaly to hit the campus. Su Chen knew his friend was right. That's why he'd been so careful around the military and the Spirit Kai Association. He'd purposely kept his most powerful fire skills hidden. But honestly, he wasn't too worried. He still had plenty of other tricks up his sleeve. Just then the front door creaked open. His cousin was back. She walked in holding a bag of food and asked if he'd eaten yet. Without even looking up, he just told her to leave it on the table. She let out a little sigh. She thought her cousin was a good person with no bad habits, but his one major flaw was his laziness. All he ever did was lie around the house, glued to his phone, not even bothering to go to college. Meanwhile, she was out there as a pioneer, constantly running around and hiding her identity from everyone. The difference between them was just crazy. She knew a powerful spirit creation master had just appeared in their area, and she decided right then that she would protect her cousin, no matter what. At the same time, Su Chen was busy watching a video of the fire he'd started. He scrolled through the comments. People were panicking, saying special forces had shown up. He thought it looked way worse than the last anomaly. If he wanted to check it out in person, he knew he'd have to contact her. The next day, they showed up at Qingcheng University. A crowd was gathered outside the gates, blocked by guards and buzzing with rumors about the fire. But while everyone else was stuck, Fang Yi and his companion walked right through like they owned the place. The people in the crowd couldn't believe it. The university was on lockdown, but these two just strolled right past security without a problem. They looked out at the smoldering ruins. The woman immediately recognized the cause of the destruction, calling it heavenly fire. She explained that this kind of fire ignites without warning and is impossible to put out. It just keeps burning until it's devoured everything in its path. The woman told Fang Yi she was heading to the principal's office. He decided to stay behind and check out the site himself. Now that he was alone, Fang Yi made his way to the center of the destruction. He knelt down, touching the scorched earth. It was already completely cold. There wasn't a single trace of the heavenly fire's energy left, which meant he couldn't collect any of it. He realized he'd been too optimistic. Just then, a voice called out his name, breaking his concentration. He turned and saw two women in school uniforms. He immediately recognized one of them. It was Chu Qingli. He couldn't believe it and wondered what she was doing here. Qingli's friend pointed him out, reminding her that he was the ex-boyfriend who'd only managed to get into a junior college. She continued her little speech, telling him that he should just accept reality and let go of any feelings he might still have for Qingli. Fang Yi was completely lost. Feelings for her. As he stood there confused, other students started whispering, recognizing Chu Qingli and wondering who this guy with her was. The gossip spread quickly. The other students didn't recognize him and just assumed he was some random guy trying to hit on the school beauty. They complained about security letting an outsider in, calling him annoying. That's when Qingli's friend stepped up. This genius got right in his face, telling him to think twice. She said countless guys better than him were chasing Qingli and that he didn't even rank. She demanded to know how he got past security and threatened to report him. Chu Qingli just watched, thinking to herself. She remembered him saying she'd regret their breakup. Seeing him here now, she just thought he was a hypocrite. Just then, the woman who came with Fang Yi walked up. She calmly asked him if the girl causing a scene was his friend. Chu Qingli froze, completely shocked to see her there. Fang Yi just looked at her, and the woman with him casually told him that Chu Qingli was just a classmate, nothing more. The look she gave them was enough to shut everyone up. Both Chu Qingli and her friend were completely stunned. Qingli couldn't understand who this woman was or why she had such a powerful aura. The agent turned back to Fang Yi, explaining that the fire situation was worse than they thought. She told him the principal wanted them to investigate, and that from now on he was a special advisor appointed by the military. He just calmly agreed. Suddenly, a bunch of men in suits started clearing the area. The students couldn't believe it when they saw who was leading them. It was the principal himself, a guy who almost never shows up in public. They all started whispering. Apparently, the principal was always swamped with work and nobody had ever seen him smile. They immediately figured he must be here because of Fang Yi and the woman. Hilariously, Chu Qingli's friend was grinning from ear to ear. This genius actually thought the principal was here to arrest the two of them for trespassing. But the principal walked right past everyone else and stopped in front of Fang Yi. He reached out his hand, greeting him respectfully as he said something. He was relieved to finally have his help with the fires on campus. Fang Yi just stood there as the principal of the university. A man twice his age bowed his head and pleaded with him to handle the incident on the playground. Chu Qingli watched from the crowd, completely speechless. None of this made any sense. The men in black suits immediately formed a line, pushing the other students back. The crowd started buzzing, unable to believe that the principal was actually bowing to some young guy. Watching it all, the students started to put two and two together. This guy had to have some kind of special status to get this kind of treatment. That's when the whispers turned towards Chu Qingli. People started scoffing at the idea that he was her ex-boyfriend. It was obvious now that he was completely out of her league. Then came the final blow. Someone pointed out that throughout this entire time, Fang Yi hadn't even glanced at the so-called school beauty. To him, she might as well have not even been there. The principal led them towards the problem area, explaining the situation. It all started a few nights ago when a playground caught fire. But this was no ordinary fire, even the fire trucks couldn't put it out. He told them it wasn't just one playground. The fires kept popping up and he'd even seen flames just hanging in midair. They managed to extinguish the others, but one fire was still burning. As they got closer, Fang Yi immediately noticed the burnt smell. He asked if the basketball hoop was where it all started. The principal confirmed it was. This was the fire that had never gone out. The woman with him pulled out a strange device. The principal looked at the number on the screen and asked her what it was. She explained that it was a basic detector for this kind of energy. The rule was simple. If the number goes over 10, all ordinary people have to be kept away, or it could be a disaster for them. The principal's eyes went wide. The number on the device wasn't just over 10. It was climbing fast, hitting 60, then jumping all the way to 110. The woman started to panic. A number that high meant the entire city could be in danger. She immediately got on her communicator, demanding elite soldiers to form a perimeter. But while she was calling for backup, Fang Yi wasn't waiting around. He just took a running leap, jumped the fence, and headed straight into the flames. The woman screamed his name, but it was too late. He landed right in the middle of the inferno, and the flames exploded around him. Back outside, the woman's detector shot up to 110. She started to panic, explaining that this was now a S-level anomaly. She couldn't believe Fang Yi had just charged in a... The principal was thinking the same thing. Even for the strongest warrior, this was a suicide mission. And he was right to be worried. Inside the fire, a massive dragon made of pure flame began to take shape. But Fang Yi was completely calm. He just stood there, letting the inferno rage around him. He knew his own power could shield his body from the heat, but it couldn't actually stop the primordial flame itself. To do that, he had to get as close as possible to the source. He focused his energy, reaching out his hand to confront the swirling beast. Then he unleashed his technique. A wave of golden energy erupted from his body, forming a protective barrier. The two forces slammed into each other. The power was incredible, and he grunted from the sheer strain of holding the flames back. The system confirmed it. This was a heavenly fire attribute, wilder than anything he'd faced before. But instead of being scared, this man was thrilled. He decided right then and there he wasn't just going to fight it, he was going to absorb it. And just like that, the system responded. It gave him a brand new technique, the 9-Dragon Heavenly Fire Sealing Technique. As the flames swirled into the shape of a massive dragon, he now had the perfect weapon to deal with it. The best part, the system told him the technique was already unlocked. No training required. He was ready to go right now. Final notification popped up. The heavenly fire attribute was officially. His eyes glowed red. Without a moment's hesitation, he brought his hands together and unleashed the 9-dragon heavenly fire sealing technique. Instantly, massive black chains shot out from his body, wrapping around the fire dragon and binding it completely. Back outside, the agent watched in disbelief. She recognized the aura of a seal, explaining she'd seen military pioneers use something similar, but Fang Yi's version felt completely different. The chains pulled tight, lifting the entire inferno into the air with Fang Yi at its core. Seeing the sheer power at play, the principal screamed for everyone to get back immediately. The chains tightened, crushing the fiery chaos into a single point. In a flash, the massive inferno was gone, compressed into a small glowing sphere wrapped in chains. With the seal complete, Fang Yi held the raw power of the heavenly fire in the palm of his hand. He placed the sealed fire over the basketball hoop. Then he gave the principal a strict warning. The playground was now off limits. No one could unseal it, renovate it, or even go near it. This was the only way to stop the fire from spreading again. The agent watched him, her expression unreadable. She knew this was more than just some standard technique. The principal nervously tried to lighten the mood, joking that the school had plenty of other playgrounds. But the agent cut him off, telling him she needed to speak with Fang Yi privately. The principal immediately agreed, telling them to go right ahead. He then turned to the agent, asking what was on her mind. She got straight to the point. She told Fang Yi he was hiding his true abilities. He tried to play it cool, claiming the fire was just difficult to handle. She wasn't buying it for a second, telling him to stop playing dumb. She knew he was hiding his real talent. She admitted it was normal for powerful people like him to keep secrets. But then her tone shifted. She told Fang Yi that while she had no right to ask, she hoped he would hear her out. She laid out the stakes. In this time of great change, the nation desperately needed top-tier talents like him. She compared him to a nuclear weapon, a power so great it could keep the peace when things got worse. She warned him that every powerful group, from the military to the Spirit Kai Association, would be fighting to recruit him. Even foreign powers would try to lure him away with generous offers. Then Jai Lan admitted she had her own reasons for telling him all this. If he joined her military unit, they'd gain a powerful ally. She urged him to start thinking about his choice now, so he wouldn't be undecided when the time came. Fang Yi finally spoke. He was curious why both she and Wang Liang seemed to think he didn't belong in their restricted zone, almost like he wasn't worthy. She seemed a little flustered by the question. She explained it was because of a legendary military district, a group so powerful they were almost unnatural. She just figured he'd be more interested in joining them instead. Fang Yi processed this, a small smile playing on his lips as he considered the idea of a top-tier unit. Jai Lan admitted she'd never actually met them herself. All she knew were rumors that the nation's top divisions were so busy that no one else ever saw them. She quickly changed the subject, telling him it was time to go. The principal had offered to treat them to lunch, and it sounded like the university was facing some serious trouble of its own. The conversation with Jai Lan left Fang Yi deep in thought. He realized there were terrifying anomalies out there, and the pioneers fighting them were likely at his level or even stronger. He felt a sense of urgency. The world was changing fast, and he wasn't prepared enough. His mind immediately went to the heavenly fire he'd absorbed from the playground. He considered its nature, a wild, uncontrollable force that burned everything in its path. It was the perfect weapon for wiping out the kind of endlessly regenerating monsters he'd just imagined. And that's when it hit him, he had the perfect way to control it. The heavenly fire would be a perfect match for his scarlet fire sword technique. He could combine the two, making his attacks even more powerful. After all, you can never have too much power. With his new plan in mind, Su Chen headed straight for the back mountain. He stepped into the woods, his blade ready. Something felt a little off. He found a sign warning people that the mountain was dangerous. He immediately realized what was going on. The military wouldn't know he was experimenting here, which meant the only people who could have done this were from the Aura Association. They were basically just handing him the whole area to use as his private training ground. He smirked. If they were going to be so generous, he might as well accept. But then his expression changed. He felt a presence nearby. It was a familiar aura, the same kind he'd fought back at the factory, though this one felt weaker. Suddenly, a twisted monkey-like creature appeared in the trees. Its red eyes locked onto him. Hilariously, this thing was actually trying to size him up before attacking. Su Chen grinned. He decided to give it a proper show. Flames erupted along his blade, the perfect test for his new power. System window popped up, offering to embed the heavenly fire directly into his blade. It described the power as a light attribute perfect for destroying evil. Without hesitation, he accepted. The blade instantly erupted in a torrent of golden flames. He grinned, wondering what kind of power this new heavenly fire would have when combined with his scarlet flame blade art. The creature across from him snarled, ready to attack. He decided to give it a proper test. Leaping forward, he unleashed a massive wave of fire straight at the monster. The flames completely swallowed the creature. It didn't even have time to scream. The power was incredible. He realized the energy was more than double his original technique, and strangely the flames felt cold to him, having no negative effect at all. With the test complete, he decided to hunt down whatever was left of that thing. Meanwhile, somewhere else on the same mountain, a live streamer was trying to convince her chat that she wasn't a fake. She bragged about being lucky and always finding good content. Her viewers dared her to go film the mysterious fire at the university that everyone was talking about. But then she heard a noise nearby. Her eyes went wide as she turned to look. Something slammed into her out of nowhere. She screamed as her phone went flying, smashing to pieces on the ground as the live stream cut out. On the live stream, her viewers were laughing. They thought it was all an act, just some fake special effects. But this was very real. The creature let out a vicious hiss. and was then instantly vaporized by a massive blast of fire. The streamer could only stare in shock. Her chat was now going crazy, praising the top-tier visual effects. Her viewer count exploded past 13,000. The poor girl was terrified, caught right in the middle of the blast. But even then, she tightened her grip on her phone. She was going to film this. Standing in the middle of the inferno, she aimed her camera. She yelled that she'd caught it on film. There was someone standing inside the fire. And there he was. A man stood completely untouched by the flames, holding a blade of pure fire. To the streamer, it was obvious. He was an immortal sent to save people. The footage went viral instantly. Millions of people saw it, and the story exploded online, trending #1. In an office somewhere, one woman excitedly tried to show her coworker Jingliu, telling her that cultivators were real. But Jingliu just looked skeptical, brushing it off as another fake video. Elsewhere, a woman named Jingliu sat by a hospital bed, watching over her teacher. She spoke quietly, saying that this new powerful person was a sign of hope for their nation. She believed that with someone this strong appearing, the chances of her teacher waking up had just gotten better. The story then jumps forward to the next day. Su Chen was thinking about the uproar from yesterday. He knew some streamer had snuck into the back mountain just for internet fame. He wasn't surprised that the video was already wiped from the internet and the account was banned. He figured the military or the Aura Association must have handled it. But as he sat there, another thought suddenly hit him. He realized Lin Yi hadn't come back all night and she hadn't sent him any messages. Even for a mission, this was strange. He felt like something was wrong. That girl wasn't usually this unreliable. He tried calling her, but the number was out of service. That confirmed it. This was bad. He knew he had to go find her. Turns out Su Chen was right to be worried. Miles away in a dark, misty forest, Lin Yi and her companion were trapped. She asked her friend if she knew how long it had been. Her friend looked away, ashamed. She guessed it had been about 10 hours, but she'd lost count. She apologized, admitting she thought they were just dealing with simple shadow phantoms. Lin Yi grunted, her body tense with the effort of just staying upright. She cut her friend off, telling her to stop apologizing. She said it was her own fault for not being strong enough and urged her to stay alert and save her strength. She looked up, a thought flashing through her mind of the golden powerhouse she'd seen before. She wished she could be like him, because honestly, they were going to need that kind of power. A massive demonic creature was looming over them in the darkness. Suddenly, a shadowy creature lunged at Yi's friend. She screamed out a warning. Without hesitating, Yi blasted it with a wave of bright blue energy, cutting the monster down. But more of them were already swarming in. That's when Yi realized these weren't just monsters. They were the bodies of people who had been trapped and died here. Her friend explained the horrible truth. The real enemy was just toying with them, trying to turn them into walking corpses too. Their attacks were completely useless against the black mist, which was quickly draining their spiritual energy. It was just waiting for them to run out of power. They were like rats in a maze, and in this place, the creature seemed invincible. The hopelessness of the situation was finally setting in. And that's when the sky itself seemed to open up. A single, massive red eye stared down at them from the darkness. It wasn't just an eye, it was a grotesque living thing dripping with pure evil. This was the real monster. And there it was, not just an eye, but a whole creature made of them. A disgusting, dripping monster hanging in the darkness. Yi's friend wasn't backing down, though. She cursed at the thing, getting ready for a fight. She warned Yi that the monster was losing patience. But before she could finish, a red light flared in the darkness, and everything went silent. Somehow Yi was now alone, completely surrounded by those horrible red eyes. She thought this was it. This was the end. Her friend was already being swallowed by the darkness. She couldn't hear Yi anymore. All she could feel was regret for being so overconfident, for thinking they could actually pull this mission off alone. As she was pulled under, she thought about the future she was about to lose. She'd never get to see how the world changed after spiritual energy returned. She closed her eyes, accepting it was over. And that's when a huge blast of blue light tore through the darkness. Someone was here. A figure landed in a blast of blue energy, his eyes glowing with power. It was Su Chen. He'd made it just in time. Yi couldn't believe it. She whispered his name, realizing it was her cousin. The blue energy exploded outwards, completely clearing the darkness. He stood there, sword in hand, surrounded by crackling energy. Her friend was unconscious on the ground, but they were safe. Yi finally understood her cousin wasn't an ordinary person at all. Calling it the Red Fire Blade, the monster reformed right behind him. Yi screamed a warning, but Su Chen didn't even look concerned. He just smirked, saying this was a perfect chance to test his heavenly fire on a dark creature. A massive wave of fire washed over the anomaly. The creature screamed as it was instantly burned to nothing. A moment later, Yi's friends started to wake up. They were sitting in a circle of fire, completely unharmed. She was totally confused and asked if they were dead. Her friends started to panic, thinking they'd been dragged to hell with the monster. But Yi grabbed her, telling her to calm down and look closely. They were still alive. With the monster taken care of, Su Chen just sighed. He casually mentioned that he hadn't even had breakfast yet. But Yi's friend wasn't listening. A memory was suddenly clicking into place. Her eyes went wide. She realized he was the same person who had saved them from the death vines back in Yonghuo town. Su Chen just looked a little embarrassed, surprised she recognized him so easily. Yi was completely stunned. Her friend couldn't believe it either. She turned to Yi, reminding her that this was the super powerful big shot she'd always claimed was just a mediocre cousin. She kept putting the pieces together. This was the same guy who'd caught Sister Yahello's attention. But then she realized something else. He'd just used pure lightning to clear the mist, not fire like before. That's when the biggest piece fell into place. A super genius with 2 high-level attributes. She realized the god who recently broke through to the spirit creation realm in their neighborhood, that had to be her cousin too. Su Chen had heard enough. He confirmed that yes, it was him, then immediately got serious. He wanted to know why just the two of them were out here dealing with such a dangerous creature and where the rest of their team was. She explained that their team was a bit of a mess. One of their members was sick and his family wouldn't let him out. Another had a tougher mission to deal with, and the rest of them weren't always together. Yi's friend admitted she'd gotten cocky. She thought breaking through to the Ghost Axe level was a big deal, but she completely underestimated the mission. Su Chen thought about that. He remembered how she used to complain about her teammates, but the second he showed up she defended them. He realized she was loyal, but her old squad was probably finished. That's when Yi turned to her cousin. She said that since he and his friend knew her real identity and she trusted them, she had an idea. She asked if they could form a new team together. Su Chen smiled, agreeing on one condition: it had to be kept a secret. Yi's friend was absolutely thrilled. She promised her lips were sealed, feeling like the luckiest person in the world for getting to team up with him. Yi, on the other hand, was just overwhelmed. She realized that on this lonely path, having a family member she could truly depend on was an incredible feeling. She beamed at Su Chen, thanking him again. To show her gratitude, she promised to fry 2 extra eggs for him at dinner. With their new team formed, they started walking. A moment later, Yi's friend looked up from her phone, announcing that Sister Yahello had just posted a new mission. The mission was posted by Sister Yahello. It was a simple notice: go to the extreme dark zone to collect some items. But it ended with a pretty serious warning to think carefully before signing up. Su Chen asked about the place. Yi explained that the extreme dark zone was a forbidden area, strictly off limits. The dark power inside was so overwhelming that even the most experienced pioneers stayed far away from it. She went on, saying that most of the strange creatures appearing in the city were actually seeping out from that zone. The authorities couldn't even explore it properly because of how many people they'd lost inside. Su Chen heard all that and just decided. He said they should give it a try. Yi's friend was skeptical, pointing out that Sister Yahello was famously mysterious and never said more than a few words to anyone. Su Chen considered that the place was under strict government lockdown and had a high body count. For Yahello to be assigning missions there, she couldn't just be some rogue. He figured she had to be military or someone very high-ranking in the association. Just then someone else asked for details in the chat. To their shock, Yahello actually gave a detailed reply. The mission was to collect something called lost marsh flowers. But then she dropped the bomb. It might involve a S-class anomaly, the death rate was very high, and they shouldn't even try without a powerful team. Meanwhile, far away, a woman flanked by bodyguards checked her phone. She smirked, thinking that now it all just depended on whether a certain person was willing to take the bait. Yi couldn't believe how blunt the warning was. She said it might as well have been a direct challenge, asking if they dared to show up. Su Chen just stood there with a grin. He looked like he was enjoying this. Su Chen smirked. He had a feeling that this Sister Yahello was aiming that warning directly at him. It wasn't a deterrent, it was a test. The image of the extreme dark zone was grim, a dead swamp choked with black mist and twisted trees. But Su Chen wasn't put off. He was actually excited. This was a place he definitely wanted to see for himself. Meanwhile, the woman who posted the mission, Sister Lan, was walking with her aides. One of them started to question the plan, but Sister Lan was confident. She said that if this person was truly worthy, he would show up. Her aide looked worried, asking what would happen if he didn't take the bait. Sister Lan's expression didn't change. She just said that if he doesn't come, it simply means fate isn't ready yet. She turned back to them with a knowing smile. She asked if they really believed this mission was just designed to send powerful pioneers to their deaths for no reason. As she handed off the flowers, she began to explain the truth. This mission to get the losing tempering flower was a 9 deaths 1 life kind of deal, but its true purpose was the exact opposite of what it looked like. She told them this was the only way to build up the nation's strength. The image was grim, a flower blooming from blood on a battlefield. But she was clear. Only by getting this flower could they save more pioneers in the long run. Her words continued, talking about protecting the future backbone of the country. At the same time, miles away, Su Chen was on a train. A little kid pointed at the long weapon on his back, but his mom just laughed it off as cosplay. Back with Sister Lan, the reason for all this became clear. They were standing over someone in a hospital bed. She explained that whether it's for the future or for the top fighters they've already lost, they have to get more of those flowers. This man, their teacher, was the only pioneer in the entire nation to have reached the Vajra realm. She explained that in this new era of spiritual energy, a powerhouse like him was as valuable as a nuclear weapon. He was their greatest advantage in dealing with other countries. That's why, even if it meant sacrificing a few squads or even more pioneers, getting that flower to heal him was worth any price. The aide gently reminded Sister Lan that the mission was important, but so was her own health. Sister Lan just scoffed, questioning if her body even mattered. Suddenly, she snapped. She screamed that her life wasn't just hers, it was a debt she owed to the teammates who had saved her. The anger faded as quickly as it came, leaving her looking exhausted and ashamed. She quietly apologized for snapping at them. The aide asked if her headache was flaring up again. Sister Lan brushed it off, saying it wasn't time for medicine yet. But the pain brought back memories of her old squad, a happy moment from a time long past. The memory shifted to a moment of chaos. An order was being screamed for the swordbearer squad to evacuate immediately. It was the extreme darkness zone. Her captain was on the ground, bleeding out. He told her this was for their teacher, for their country, for everyone. He entrusted the mission to get the flower to her. She just screamed, refusing to leave him. Her entire team was giving her their remaining power. They urged her to use their strength to finish the mission, and to make it back alive no matter what. She knew the risks. The spiritual power her team gave her could be tainted, and if the flower wasn't picked perfectly, it was all for nothing. 45 minutes later, the mission was underway. Meanwhile, Su Chen and his new team were walking through a completely empty wasteland. After a while, Yi's friend sighed, asking how much further they had to go. She then asked Yi why they couldn't just fly to make it easier. Yi explained that spiritual energy just wasn't dense enough in the world yet. Not even the strongest pioneers could fly freely. Su Chen didn't say a word. He just kept his eyes fixed on the horizon, completely focused. Finally, a massive, heavily fortified base came into view. One of them asked if this was it, the extreme darkness zone. They stood there for a moment, just taking in the sheer scale of the military lockdown. Even from outside the walls, they could feel a disgusting energy pouring out. Su Chen noted that it was 1,000 times more terrifying than the creature they fought the night before. The women looked seriously unnerved, but he just told them to stay calm. As they got closer, they saw they weren't alone. A whole crowd of pioneers was gathered at the entrance. Yi's friend was shocked. She realized this wasn't just about a reward, this dark power was a threat to everyone. One of the pioneers was explaining the grim reality of the situation. Dark creatures were already causing chaos inside the city. Su Chen and Yi listened quietly, taking it all in. Another guy chimed in with a war story. He'd fought a giant mutated rodent and a massive snake before. He warned that the creatures were smart enough to set traps, and they had nearly wiped out a whole team from the spiritual association. He said the worst part was how clever they were. Somehow, the anomalies were sneaking right past the military defenses at the city border. The attacks were becoming more frequent, to the point where they were getting hard to contain. It was clear to everyone they had to go in. At the entrance, an official-looking guy was watching over the teams that had already gathered. Among them was a woman with long white hair. She looked confident, like she knew exactly what she was doing. That's when she saw Su Chen's group approaching. She seemed surprised to see him there, especially with two women by his side. The girl with the green hair tried to get her friend's attention, but she seemed completely lost in her own world. The blue-haired girl was desperately praying to go unnoticed. That's when she turned and saw Su Chen standing right there looking confused. She was thrilled to see him, immediately calling him a big shot. Then she pointed at the woman with red hair and asked if she was Yi's sister-in-law. The girl immediately got flustered. Su Chen just smirked and explained that the woman wasn't anyone special, just his errand runner from the spiritual association. Suddenly, a voice boomed from behind them. Someone was calling them a bunch of shameless brats. It was a team of older, heavily armed pioneers. The leader glared at Su Chen's group, complaining that the new generation had no manners and didn't even greet their elders. The red-haired woman wasn't having it. She was about to go off on the guy, but Su Chen gave her a look to calm down. Still, she shot back, telling the old man to mind his own business before he got someone hurt. Just then, a vehicle pulled up. The veteran pioneer smirked as if he was expecting it. The door slid open and a woman stepped out. Everyone recognized her immediately. It was Sister Garen. Sister Garen looked down at everyone, and honestly, she didn't seem very impressed. She walked through the crowd flanked by soldiers, carrying herself like a queen. The other pioneers were stunned, wondering who this woman was that commanded so much respect. They figured she had to be the one in charge of opening the gate. Garen turned her attention to the massive, crackling energy field just ahead. It was a giant swirling vortex of pure power held between two huge towers. This was the entrance. Without a word, she raised her hand. A blue light formed around it. With a sharp gesture, she tore a hole right through the energy field, ripping the gate wide open for everyone. But the second it was open, something went terribly wrong. A violent red energy erupted from inside. Before anyone could react, it grabbed Garen and dragged her straight into the darkness. With Garen gone, another woman stepped up. She announced that the gate was open and gave one final, critical warning. Their target was something called the Withered Bloom, and it had to be collected whole and untouched by human blood, or there would be no reward. With their orders given, the teams didn't hesitate. They filed into the portal, disappearing into the swirling darkness. Among the pioneers, an old-timer in red armor was still complaining bitterly. His younger partner told him to keep it down, saying if they died, they'd just be reported missing. The old man shot back that if the officials paid their families, it would be an admission that they sent them here to die. The blue-haired woman with Su Chen started sizing up the competition. She pointed out that the angry old man was a powerful spirit-forging expert, and there were probably others just as strong hiding their auras. The rest of the teams were all elite Axe Realm fighters. Su Chen was surprised. He hadn't thought that old man seemed so strong. This mission was clearly more dangerous than he'd expected. Miles away, a woman named Sister Lang got the final headcount for the expedition. The numbers were insane, dozens of elite warriors, including 3 spirit-forging masters. The mission's targets ranged all the way up to S-class anomalies. The world inside the gate was completely dead. It was a wasteland of twisted, barren trees under a dark, oppressive sky. As they moved deeper, one of the veterans warned everyone to stay close. He explained that the dark energy in the air messes with your vision and could get them separated. Just then, one of the girls with Su Chen doubled over, looking like she was about to be sick. The white-haired girl calmly explained that it was just the smell of rotting corpses mixed with brain fluid. She told her friend it was a normal reaction. To prove her point, she gestured to some other tough-looking pioneers up ahead who were also on their knees, retching from the horrible stench. The white-haired woman started explaining the danger. She said the dark energy in the air was like a pollution that specifically weakens pioneers, making this place incredibly dangerous. Su Chen took in the information as she laid out the threat levels. The monsters here were ranked from B-class to S-class, with S-class being powerful enough to cause a cataclysm. The real problem was that the Dark Zone boosted every single creature by at least 1 full rank. The other girls looked worried. They turned to their leader, Captain Su, and asked if she was okay, wondering if she'd been affected by the pollution. Captain Su just laughed it off. She explained that her team was used to this kind of thing. Turns out, she was an Axe Realm 3-star and had even mutated her water power into a much stronger ice attribute. She then turned to Su Chen, asking if he felt his aura dropping in the black mist. He confirmed it, admitting that many powerful masters had died in this place. They both knew they had to be careful. Su Chen told his group to conserve their strength and focus their aura so the black mist couldn't get to them. Internally, though, he realized he felt perfectly fine. He figured his sun and lightning attributes were naturally repelling the darkness, or maybe his new power level just made him immune. But up ahead, some of the other pioneers weren't being nearly as careful. This one idiot was already fighting a shadow creature, laughing about how easy the monsters in this zone were. The leader of that group, a guy in heavy red armor, rallied his men. He yelled at them to charge forward and grab the prize, wanting to show the younger generation how it's done. The dark energy was already getting to them. One of his cousins started coughing, clearly struggling against the cold. Su Chen turned, realizing she was just a kid and couldn't handle this kind of pressure on her own. He walked over and placed a hand on her head. Instantly, a warm golden light surrounded her. The girl's eyes went wide. All the sickness and cold just vanished, replaced by a feeling like standing in the sun. She guessed it must be a rare fire attribute. She explained that since reaching Axe Realm 3-star, she'd gotten better at sensing different energies, like her own wood attribute. Su Chen just calmly corrected her, it wasn't fire. He told them it was the sun attribute. Then he casually dropped a bomb. He was the one who took care of the 2 huge anomalies back at the university. He even had a desolation attribute, but he figured it was always smart to keep a few tricks up his sleeve. Hearing all this, the other cousin, who was shivering from the cold, decided to shoot her shot. She admitted her metal attribute wasn't strong enough yet, and then shyly asked if he could warm her up a little too. Su Chen just smiled and agreed to warm her for the day. He grabbed her hand, and in a flash she was surrounded by the same comforting light. The red-haired woman, who was still shivering, saw this and immediately got annoyed, asking them what they thought they were doing. The girl who'd been warmed up just smiled and told Captain Su's squad it felt amazing. That was all it took. The other women immediately turned to Su Chen and started begging him to share the warmth. So he did. In an instant, all of them were surrounded by that same golden light, completely protected from the bitter cold. But the peace didn't last. A system alert flashed and an anomaly was approaching. Before they could even react, a shadowy beast with glowing red eyes lunged out of the darkness. The team's scout identified it as a class anomaly. The blue-haired girl stepped forward, telling everyone she would handle it as she gathered ice energy in her hands. She launched her attack, hitting the creature dead on. But then it just vanished into thin air. She was completely confused, and a class threat couldn't be that easy. That's when they realized it was a trap. The ground erupted around them, and suddenly they were surrounded by a massive horde of ghouls. While everyone else was frozen in fear, Su Chen just calmly walked forward. He told his team to watch their step as he casually strolled right into the sea of monsters. His eyes flared with golden energy. In a single instant, a massive wave of fire erupted from him, turning the entire horde of monsters to ash. As the flames died down, Su Chen stood there completely untouched. He calmly told the team they were safe, explaining that the entire swarm of monsters was just an illusion created by 2 creatures. He went on to explain that the anomalies in this zone had evolved. They were all class threats, and some could even mimic human speech after eating so many people. Without being in the spirit-forging realm, he said, there was no way to fight them head-on. The masked woman was completely stunned. She realized Su Chen had just destroyed 2 A-class beasts in one hit, a feat that would have taken her several rounds at least. She knew right then that sticking together was their only chance. Su Chen warned them that the anomalies might even disguise themselves to get close. Then he looked down at the woman who had been shivering earlier, now collapsed on the ground, and told her to get up. But she couldn't move. The poor woman was being crushed by his aura alone. She felt like she couldn't even breathe, terrified that just being near him could burn her to death. It was the pure suppression of a higher realm. Just then Su Chen's head snapped to the side. His expression turned serious. He had sensed something else. The woman next to him suddenly spoke up, asking if anyone else could hear what sounded like ocean waves up ahead. Su Chen's eyes narrowed. He heard it too. Suddenly, screams erupted from the teams up ahead. They were in total chaos, yelling at each other to run and stop fighting. Something was attacking them, and it was bad. The 2 women with Su Chen were terrified by the sounds of the attack. But our boy just stood there, completely unfazed, watching the chaos unfold. That's when they saw it. A massive swirling wave of pure darkness was swallowing everyone. One of the pioneers screamed in terror, calling it the Dark Tide. Apparently, this was the same monster that had wiped out a legendary unit. As people were getting swallowed by the darkness, one arrogant warrior stood his ground. He put up a massive energy shield, screaming that he was different from the regular army and that everything here belonged to him. But his confidence lasted about 2 seconds. The dark tide washed over his shield and just ate it. It didn't even slow down. All around, the pioneers were being torn apart. They screamed that the monsters weren't just a rank or even S rank. They were something else entirely. From a safe distance, Su Chen and his team watched the chaos. The darkness looked like a giant, brutal wave swallowing everyone in its path. One of the women turned to him, her voice shaking, and asked what on earth they were looking at. Su Chen explained that it was the dark tide, the most powerful form of dark energy, a corrosive force that devours everything, even the monsters themselves. He realized their plan had failed and that everyone who went ahead of them was probably already gone. Elsewhere, another group was watching in horror. The woman with them was terrified, saying she'd heard the dark tide had enough power to wipe out an entire city. She asked her cousin if they should try to run. But her cousin told everyone not to panic. He raised his hand and created a massive golden spirit barrier around them. He claimed it could resist the dark energy long enough for them to survive the surge. One of the women in his group completely lost it. She screamed at him, calling him crazy. She reminded him that the dark tide was pure dark power. They had just watched a powerful elder get swallowed whole. There was no way they could stop it. While everyone else was panicking, Su Chen just stood there, energy flaring from his hands. He announced that he was going to destroy the dark tide. His cousin couldn't believe what she was hearing. Without hesitation, he unleashed a massive beam of energy, slamming it straight into the heart of the darkness. But he didn't just attack it from the outside. Our boy dove headfirst into the very center of the swirling chaos. And somehow, surrounded by pure destruction, he was actually smiling. He realized these anomalies weren't just simple monsters that had evolved. They were something else entirely, fused together by the dark energy. He figured out their power was jumping like crazy, from B rank to a rank, and then all the way up to S rank. The overall level of these dark tide anomalies was so high, he realized calling them S rank wouldn't be a stretch. That's why they could swallow a top-tier expert without any trouble. With his analysis complete, Su Chen got to work. He started cutting through the horde, his blue energy slicing through the darkness. One after another, the fused monsters were torn apart by his attacks. He was starting to understand the power of this place. Normally, a spirit-shaping expert would struggle against a B-rank monster, but inside the dark tide, even an A-rank anomaly got taken down in a single hit. That's when he noticed something familiar in the swirling darkness. It was one of the guys from before. He called out, trying to see if the man was still alive in there. Somehow, the guy was still responding. His spirit energy hadn't been completely eaten by the darkness yet. Su Chen realized there was still a sliver of hope to save him. Without wasting a second, our boy unleashed his divine thunder. A massive blast of pure lightning energy shot forward, aimed right at the trapped soldier. The blast hit its mark, tearing the man free from the darkness. He was thrown through the air, hitting the ground hard. He was alive, but just barely. Su Chen stood over him, a flaming sword appearing in his hand. The guy would make it, but it had been a close call. But the fight wasn't over. The darkness he had just blasted apart began to reform into a terrifying, monstrous shape. Su Chen realized the awful truth: this thing could regenerate infinitely. This was a power only seen in anomalies above S rank. Since brute force wasn't working, Su Chen decided to try something else. He unleashed his spirit barrier, creating a massive dome of golden energy that pushed back the tide of darkness. He then tried to absorb the energy, but the system immediately told him it failed. Turns out, this dark attribute was so unusual that even his powers couldn't extract it. This was a whole different level of weird. Wasn't worried though, he was already thinking of a new plan. He knew he couldn't erase it and he couldn't absorb it. He needed another way. He wished he had his little white flower with him, which could have fought the darkness directly. But then he thought about what else he could use. That's when it hit him. The answer was right in front of him the whole time. Meanwhile, the group he was protecting watched from inside the golden barrier. One of them asked Captain Su if he'd ever seen anything like this, but the captain admitted he was just as clueless as they were. They looked out and saw the impossible. The dark tide, that swirling storm of monsters, was completely frozen in place. The two women inside the barrier looked on nervously. One of them felt a deep sense of unease, more than she'd ever felt before. She was getting really worried about her cousin, wondering if he was going to be okay after being inside the darkness for so long. Captain Su grabbed her friend's hand to steady her. She explained that Su Chen's barrier was still holding, and their best bet was to pour their own spirit power into it. After all, if someone like him couldn't make it, they didn't stand a chance anyway. She went on, explaining that Su Chen was a spirit-shaping cultivator with multiple insane abilities. Honestly, she suspected his true strength was already on par with a 3-star expert. For people at their level, trying to save a guy like that was just ridiculous. The other woman just laughed, teasing the captain about her dark sense of humor. For a second, the crushing fear seemed to lift. That's when a massive wave of fire erupted from the heart of the darkness. From inside the storm, Su Chen had unleashed his ultimate technique, the 9-dragon heavenly flame seal. He commanded the flames to rise, and a massive pillar of fire shot upwards with him at its very center. The entire team could only stare, completely speechless. One of them finally shouted, reminding her friend that the guy pulling this off was her cousin. The fire twisted and coiled, forming 9 immense dragons that swirled into a vortex of pure energy. The sight was absolutely unreal. Even the masked woman was taken aback. She watched the heavenly flames and realized what Su Chen was doing. This wasn't just an attack, it was a sealing power. The masked woman couldn't believe her eyes. He wasn't just fighting the dark tide, he was actually sealing it away. But Su Chen wasn't done. On top of the golden flames, he started gathering a terrifying amount of blue lightning. He was combining 2 completely different powers, creating a vortex so huge it dwarfed everything around it. Then he began to call out the name of an even stronger technique, the 9-dragon edict. With a final shout, he unleashed the full power of the seal. The massive vortex of fire and lightning began to shrink, compressing everything inside it into a single point. In a final blinding flash of light, the entire thing vanished. The dark tide was gone.